Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another frantic, fast, furious and fantastic round of racing action in the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 1, brought to you on a weekly basis on Friday evenings on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, we are back once again, and what a round we are back for today, because today marks round number 7 of 10 and we've made our way all the way to France for the ultimate endurance circuit in the world. It is none other than the circuit Heures du Mans, more commonly referred to as Le Mans in reference to the local town within the vicinity of which it sits. It is a circuit that has withstood the test of time, and played host to endurance racing over a 102-year history. Well, it has certainly evolved over the course of time. This circuit, as you see it today, in its 15th iteration, and indeed the variant known as number 15, but regardless of how it's changed, and how chicanes have been introduced over time, and the corners have been gradually slowed on down for the purposes of safety, one thing that has never changed around here is that this is a circuit that to win in it, you need to outlast it. Indeed, speak to any winner of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the annual race which occurs here, and what you'll find is they always say the same thing. It is not a circuit you win at, you outlast it to become the victor come the very end of it, and we may just see that today as our drivers get set to take on its venerable tarmac. I'm aware of my manners, allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on the one and only place you can catch all this racing action on a weekly basis, for it is on none other than youtube.com, and search for SimRacing International or SRI, and you can be tuning in there, enjoying the very much the likes of Kitty's Mad there, cheering on none other than Verano Motorsports, of course, and looking forward to seeing how Craig Tillotson and Kevin Smith get on. Indeed, if you are tuning in right now and you have access to the chat, don't be shy, feel free to say hi, because there's no biting here in the chat. There's only biting when it comes to our drivers on their brakes. If they bite too hard, of course, they'll be locking up because there's no anti-lock braking systems. But regardless of whether they have ABS or not, all your racing action, of course, will be brought to you on a weekly basis by myself in the commentary booth. My name is Paul Walsh, and I will be covering all the racing action as it unfolds. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a season to behold so far, and as we come into round number 7, well, there's plenty of intrigue as we close out what could arguably be the second third of the season. But without further ado, shall we make our way back in time and understand exactly how we find a way into this round. So as we take a look back at our calendar then, after what has been 6 rounds of racing, we have made our way around the globe, from Daytona to VIR to Road America to Road Atlanta. That was our American contingent. Then we made our way to Mexico in round number 5, completing the first half of the season, and last time out, on the 6th of February, we've made our way to the European continent for a brief stay, because it was in the United Kingdom where our drivers took on a 1-hour race at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, or none other than the home of British motor racing. But what exactly went down there? Well, in the elite class, we got to see an all GazX Racing Team podium, once again matching what they were able to do in Mexico, albeit from the one-stop to the no-stop from those 2 different races. We did see the one-stop race hitting everybody last time out. It was none other than Mirko Bortolotti, who made himself a 4-time winner, and he has that incredible record of every round he's been able to attend, he has taken the win at. It was an absolutely solid drive from him, but there was also plenty to talk about elsewhere, as we also got to see what was solid drives from his 2 teammates who rounded off the podium. And well, keep in mind as well, we did get to see both Mirko Bortolotti and Martin Stattmann enjoy a brilliant battle with Tim Perry, where they gained the upper hand on the Altitude 3M esports driver, and it was very close on fuel and tyre management. Meanwhile, in the pro class, what exactly happened there? Well, it was a very interesting race, because we saw a big shuffle. The top 3, in terms of your qualifying starters, they were all wiped out of the race at turn number 1, with a huge incident triggered by what was a very sideways going Joris Peters Veem from the elite class. Well, suddenly it meant your top 3 in pro all got sent all the way down the order, and the door opened up to a man who'd finished second multiple times over the course of the season but never taken a win, and that was Rene Rissler, who in the end was able to take the lead and run it on home for the win and make it a 1-2 for the GazX Racing Team, just ahead of his teammate of Jan Lintz. And then in the interclass, well, my goodness, the interclass was absolutely full of fighting, no doubt about it. The man who took pole position, Kevin Smith, he was one of the other victims of the turn 1 incident at Silverstone, and suddenly the doorway opened up to Pinto Sombolavente, who looked absolutely in control until he wasn't, because suddenly Logan Timberlake absolutely came roaring up alongside him, and the 2 went battling, and with some absolutely brilliant battling between the pair, Sombolavente was eventually able to take back the lead, and he was able to hold on to it for the remainder of the race. However, there were also some other big names who did not see their race race come to fruition. Perhaps the biggest one of them all, James Bostock, who was running in third, and at one point in an instant with himself and Angel Ordonez, they both took each other out the race, and unfortunately, James Bostock was not able to try and seize on his pace to potentially chase down his first win of the season. So what it did mean was that Sombolo Vente Indian was able to make it another win, his third win of the season, and you're going to see how that's shaking up the standings very shortly across our classes, because it was indeed a very fascinating round, and now it's time for the 13th of February, and we are here at the Le Mans 24-hour circuit for another 1-hour race. Now, of course, we do have another endurance race coming up, but it's not today. We decide instead to reserve our second and final endurance race round of the season to round number 8 in a week's time, and that's when we're making our way back to the American continent, to South America for the Interlagos Grand Prix circuit in Brazil, and on the 20th of February, we will see an extra 30 minutes of racing take place. So hold on tight to that one, but as we come into this round at Le Mans, let's talk a little bit about how the standings stand. We begin with the Elite Drivers' Championship, and what we can see here is that Miguel Leon is still holding on. But by how many points, you may ask? Only 4. It was a 10th place start at Silverstone in a qualifying session where he was off pace, but he drove a very good race in the end in order to finish 6th, and that's been able to keep the Enosis Esports driver alive at the very top. Martin Stattmann inches closer round by round. The GazX Racing Team MCM driver with another 3rd place finish. Indeed, he's yet to become a winner in the races, but he is adding up those podiums, albeit with the DNF, of course, in round number 4 interrupting that run. But right now, the Austrian driver, if he is able to land a big result today ahead of Leon, he may be able to take the championship lead. The same could be said there for the man sat in 3rd with 4 wins out of 4 races attended. The Italian driver Bortolotti there right now on 200 points. He'll be hoping he can potentially put a dent into Miguel Leon's championship advantage to the point he takes it over. But then look behind, you'll find a further 12 points adrift is Tim Perry there for Altitude Frame Esports, who couldn't quite finish on the podium last time out and make it his 2nd podium finish. However, he was very close to doing so in his Corvette C8R. Then we have Sylvain Depeche, a further 20 points behind the Cube Racing Team. He finished in 5th, but it wasn't the way he wanted to start off the day in qualifying, and he was able to make redemption in the race. However, Cube Racing Team really did struggle in qualifying last time out, and they'll be hoping to put things back together on a front foot today, given the fact it is their home circuit. Behind the Frenchman, it's Mirko Bortolotti there in 6th place for GazX Racing Team JRM, with now 2 podiums back-to-back, a 4th, a 3rd, and a 2nd. Well, naturally, that means if you do the maths right, he should be winning today. But will he be able to do so? We will see. He sits in 6th, the best part there of 18 points ahead of Pedro Luis da Silva, with the GPX Sims for Onyx Strike continuing to not be on the grid due to personal circumstances with the ongoing recovery operations in Portugal. But as far as we're aware, all's okay with him. But of course, having to prioritise personal circumstances and family first, and that's the most important thing, of course, and we do wish him well. Olivia Dean sits in 8th place for Cube Racing Team, and where it was not a happy day in the office for the Ferrari 488 Evo driver from Cube Racing Team last time out, a 13th place finish in the end. It didn't reflect where he started, and therefore he needs to rebound as quickly as possible, because otherwise, Albert Prisch is only 2 points behind. Also having a difficult day in the office for Enosis Esports, and behind the Spaniard, it's then Christian Ablasser, who rounds off the top 10 there in 10th on 113 points. Chad Henson, Los Dos Privados driver, is in 11th on 98 points, 5 ahead of Henny Schwebig, and they complete your top 12 in the Elite Drivers' Championship. And from the Beast Racing driver, we make our way to a very different beast, and that is in the form of the Pro standings. So what exactly can we see here? Well, perhaps the biggest story of them all last time out was none other than Benjamin Massey, our championship leader, struggling at Silverstone. Now, to be fair, he was very candid in his post-round interview, mentioned the fact he was still happy that 13th place start in the end translated into an 8th place finish. The Inox Motorsport driver was able to make progress, but note the fact now that advantage he had a couple of rounds ago, it has been completely decimated, particularly with Rene Russell finally getting his first win on the board. And the Austrian driver from GazX Racing Team JRM now finds himself in that 2nd place. He is split in the 2 Inox Motorsport teammates, and if he's able to put another result together today, he may just be leading the championship going into round number 8. Matthias Pettinger, meanwhile, he sits in 3rd, Inox Motorsport, and non-finished last time out. It was a disastrous day in the office, and he needs to rebound, given the fact that will now be committed as his drop score, and should he pick up another non-finish or a very low finish, he will be losing major points. Angel Ordonez sits in 4th. Also a non-finish after that contact with James Bostock, and the Enosis Esports driver will really lose out when the momentum has been building so strongly with back-to-back wins, and you can imagine his goal today is going to be one thing and one thing only: win the race. He can't afford any more difficulties, because otherwise his chances of taking the championship crown will be starting to slip very firmly out of his hands. Chris Round as well. Well, what a surprise it was from Chris Round. He was your pole man last time out. Indeed, nobody expected Round to be up there, but he was. Of course, he did take that win all the way back at Road America, but he put it on pole pole in the end at Silverstone by only what was 13 thousandths over two of his rivals, and well, those other two rivals, of course, being none other than what was the combination pair of Angel Donas and Matt Broom. And then, of course, Rene Rosser was a further 300ths behind. It was so tight in the pro qualifying session at Silverstone, and round in the end was not rewarded for his efforts after being collected in the Turn 1 instant. But the Axis SimSport driver is back today and looking to go for gold, no doubt about it, and he's ahead of Cedric Boyce only based on result count, back having the win, whereas Boyce's best result is 2 fourth place finishes. Then in 7th, it's Jan Lintz, the GazX Racing Team JRM driver, who with that second place, he's also going for a numerical progression, 3rd, 2nd, and now surely will it be a first for him today? Well, we'll have to wait and see. He's on 166 points, the best part of 37 ahead of Ryan Walker, who's continuing to move forward and really enjoying himself for Altitude 3M Esports. That's the biggest thing we've noticed with the Ford GT driver, that right now everything is really coming together, and it seems as though since he's gone to the pro class, he's really found his feet and found his confidence. Minor Scottish driver will then do have Brandon White on 124 points, 5 adrift. In turn, he's only ahead of Robin Noel Brown by the best part there of 28 points. And the GPX SimSport Onyx driver is still looking for his first podium of the season. Flavien Thierry and Mikael Abasek round off your pro at top 12. And from the pros to the inters we go. And as we do, we'll look at this. Pinto Sombolavente leading now after 3 wins in a second place. He is leading by 24 points. But he can't rest on his laurels. He cannot put his feet up because the tension is building when you consider how razor tight this interclass is. And everybody in the paddock after the racing was complete at Silverstone was saying immediately, we've all got to chase down the man at the very top right now, because he is the fastest driver out there across consistency and race pace, even if he's not the fastest in qualifying. John Ludbrook will lead the chase then for GPX SimSport Xenon with 3rd place last time out, recovering his form ahead of Andrew Fellows there, who also managed to achieve a top 5, the teammate of Ludbrook. He's the best part of 14 points behind. And then we do have a further 7 to Bruno Key, who surprised everybody once again at Silverstone by achieving a second place. He snuck it out from underneath everybody at Silverstone, and well, everyone was wondering how exactly did the We Pay 300 esports driver do it? Well, the answer is he was just simply staying out of trouble and keeping it consistent. Brian Beardsworth sits in 5th on 183 points, and he's got the pressure of Logan Timblake behind. And keeping in mind the Sim Party racing driver right now, all he needs to do is iron out those mistakes, and he could definitely be a multiple-time race winner at this point, but it hasn't quite worked out. But can he have a late resurgence? Craig Tillerson for Rhino Academy, he put on a good performance, albeit missed out on 5th place by slender margins in the end, but be hoping to be able to redeem himself for that today, so he'd love another top 5 for Rhino Academy. Head of James Bostock with that non-finish after being on course for a podium when it's completely curbed his momentum. He's going to need something special today, and he's ahead of Kevin Smith by only a single point, with the Rhino Academy driver doing well to recover at Silverstone, but no, things did not quite go right, and therefore he's got to get his head back together. Marcus Singdon completes your top 10 and missing last round for Mello Motorsports. He's ahead of Chris Susky, and the China Shop Racing driver in turn is 3 points ahead of Virgilio Garcia, who rounds off your into top 12. But from the Drivers' Championship standings, let's come to the Teams' Championship standings. And as we can see, here are your top 10 teams. What's the story of the Teams' Championship? Well, simply put, the top 2 are struggling at the moment, it seems, based on our results at Silverstone, with Inox Motorsport in particular seeing their lead gradually being eroded. Albeit that lead to second place in Oasis Esports is holding well, given the fact they are still maintaining an advantage of 34 points. And Oasis Esports, in theory, having what has been more struggles compared to their leading rivals. But it's when you look to 3rd, 4th, and 5th, that is where you notice how exactly the gaps are coming down. Because suddenly we have 3 teams, all within the best part of 5 points off of your second place team. That's GazX Racing Team JRM, GazX Racing Team MCM, and GPX SimSport Xenon, with all 3 teams achieving very solid results, albeit you would say the GazX Racing teams really brought home the mammoth haul of points, and your GPX SimSport Xenon have been demoted to 5th from 3rd, and therefore they know they've got to do a little bit more. Then, outside of the top 5, well, the fighting is definitely starting to disperse to a degree in the battle for 6th, 7th, and 8th, where the Fat Cube Racing Team have pulled a bit of a gap over Altitude 3M Esports. They're holding on to 6th, and they're gapping the rest of the top 10, and if the French outfit can do that again today, they may be able to start moving back towards the top 5. However, do not count out Altitude 3M Esports, who are making a rise. They're now up to 7th from 8th place. And with the points that Ryan Walker's bringing in, plus also the points that Perry's consistently bringing in, and also the run and form Mark Hutchinson's having, well, you can understand if that team right now feels like the confidence is growing. Then we do have GPX SimSport Onyx. They've fallen to 8th from 7th. They're in a bit of back and forth for Altitude 3M Esports, but they're well clear in 9th and 10th, and this is where the other big question mark lies, because Rhino Academy right now have moved into that 9th place. They're holding on to it, but they need to maintain the run of form, and with WePay 300 Esports, or WP 300, having now got 2 new members on the team today, and we'll be introducing introducing them shortly in the form of Handa Yang and also Kwang Li Tu. Well, Bruno Key right now, who was the solo team driver up to what is today on 225 points there. He's put in an absolutely brilliant turn of form, but now with some reinforcements, understandably, that team's going to be targeting what will be a high spot inside the top 10, perhaps even inside the top 5. And don't forget, outside the top 10 on 179 points, in 11th is Sim Party Racing, and they are only ahead of both Axis SimSport and Beast Racing by a single point. And HS Racing 1 are a further 13 points behind. So there are multiple teams right now who want to get onto this screen. They want to get into the top 10, but they're all fighting furiously for 11th place. There's still plenty ongoing as all our teams try to chase down what is those top 5 spots and indeed those trophies. But now let's come into the present. We've recapped the standings. Let's talk a little bit about our host circuit for today. Winners, of course, the Circuit des 24 Heures du Mans, the 15th layout in its history, located near Le Mans in the Sarthe region of Pays de Loire of France and spanning the best part of 8.46 miles or 13.62 kilometres depending on your preference of units. What does not change, however, is the number of corners this circuit has. A grand total of 13 corners, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps that come with it. Now, what we can see here, that this Mans circuit, it is a circuit of contradictions. You have plenty of corners, but they are located towards what is the south to southwestern end of the circuit. Meanwhile, the northern and northeastern ends of the circuit are all about extended straights. What this also means is this is a circuit which requires a lot of strategy. You need to be thinking very smart about how you fuel save in the draft and how you manage your running order in the pack, and also the fact that if you lose the toe of the car in front, you may in the end lose out to the pack that's in front of you and have to fight the guys coming up behind you. But add to that as well the fact that we do have those very technical corner sequences towards the end of the starter lap, and around here, well, everyone's going to be setting up their cars for maximum top speed, but they need to be careful for those corners because they have been the scene of many a major incident in the past, including, of course, in 2023 in the final rendition of the 24 Hours of Le Mans featuring the GTE machines, where Michael Fassbender, making his way out of the Porsche curves into the Corvette curves, ended up sending his Porsche 911 RSR to the barrier there at turn number 27. Indeed, it was a sight to behold from the movie star turned racing driver, and it didn't quite work out for him when he was doing so well. But as the drivers get set to race around here today, we're not going to talk about the lap on this diagram. Instead, what we'll do, we'll take you around a lap very shortly in the qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. But indeed, who exactly is going to be adding their name to the history books here today? Well, we'll have to wait and see. We won't have to for long because we are making our way back to circuit side, and as we do, well, let's see how everyone is getting on in this qualifying session. And as we can see, making his way around right now, currently the fastest driver out there with 14 minutes to go. Oh, goodness me, that's somebody getting it wrong in the rear of the pitch. I think that might have been Kevin Smith there getting it wrong. He's just towed to the pits. That confirms our suspicions. Coming out of the first of the Mulsanne chicanes. We do see Bortolotti making his way on down here in his Ferrari 488 Evo. Well, right now he's currently the fastest of everybody by 1.5 tenths. But the man who is the closest to him is currently your pro provisional pole sitter, Angel Ordonez. And well, the 106 driver right now absolutely going all in for this, and understandably, when he is on provisional pro pole by the best part of 1.8 seconds over the second fastest driver, Matthias Pettinger, I think he'll be very happy right now, but this is all posturing here, and when we do go racing, he's going to be very keen to make sure that he holds on to those leaders and tries to not let any of the pro drivers get any closer to him. But as who's the fastest in the interclass right now? Well, it is your championship leader, Pinto Sombolovente, the BMW M8 driver from Hungary, who right now making his way on down. I do wonder whether they've changed what it says on the side of the car today, because when I read it previously, I don't know what came over me, ladies and gents. My son became what was very uncouth in my English language at Silverstone, but have they changed something on the side of the car? I don't... Well, I think they have. I couldn't quite see what they've put on the side of the car there. I wonder if it is a reference to the French language, but we'll see as Lente makes his way down the second part of the Bolzano Straight. I think he knows he's on camera right now and having a bit of a bob and weave from side to side, but also trying to get some tyre temperature in there, as I think they have returned the car to what is the standard logos on the side there. So I think it was a United Kingdom special. But as he heads on down, Kevin Smith is not too far behind him by the best part of only 1.5 tenths. The man who you saw going to the barrier only moments ago. He's still looking very quick out there, no doubt about it, as we look from him to your pro championship leader of Benjamin Massey. Where is he on circuit, I hear you ask? Well, the answer is here he is. He's just making his way out of the Corvette curves and in towards the Ford chicanes. And right now the Inox Motorsport 153 driver, currently the 5th fastest in Pro. And, well, we do know that he's not necessarily targeting wins. He was very candid in that interview, and I think that's going to be the word we'll mention with him. He's very honest when he's interviewed and talking about the fact his target and the team's target is to make sure they take home the trophies in the drivers and the team's championships. And all they've got to do for that is finish inside the top 5 in both. And he doesn't improve there, but I think he's feeling as though right now improvements are gradually coming. As we do look to Jan Lintz making his way around there, a little bit of traffic in front of him. I think that's all the GazX Racing Team machines all trying to get a slipstream off each other. So they're coordinating this as much as humanly possible. Well, we need to introduce some newcomers to the grid today because we have 3 of them. Now, we're going to introduce the driver we didn't allude to in covering the standings, and that is this man, Robin Aston, as he makes his way on through. A privateer. He is running the colours there of GPX Simsport, but he has officially entered as a privateer for the team, so he will not be adding points to their championship campaigns, but he will be in the number 25 in the interclass. And, well, I'll tell you one thing about Robin. Whatever grid he's on, whether it's GT3, GTE, or elsewhere, he is a driver who's absolutely with it to give it his all, as he does so there and takes some grass women into Tetra Rouge, and that is going to see run out quite wide and in the end pick up a slowdown out of the fast right-hander, but there is really an embodiment of what he's all about. Give it his everything, and then if he makes mistakes, he'll dial it down, but until he makes a mistake, he won't dial it down whatsoever. He really does drive as if everything's turned up to 11, and we wish him the best luck on his debut today in round number 7. And then we do have, of course, our other 2 new drivers who we alluded to in the WePay 300 machinery. Here's one of them, Handa Yang in the 133, the Chinese driver here, running a Porsche 911 RSR. And very good to see him on the grid here, and looking forward to seeing what he can do. And currently the full fastest of your pro drivers, so looking quite good already as he makes his way in towards Mulsanne Corner. And the reason why this corner is known as Mulsanne Corner, of course, is the fact there actually is right towards what is the centre of Mulsanne Village, if you didn't know. And what you can actually see there is the public roads that lead to a central roundabout right in the middle of that village. And well, I won't go on it today, ladies and gentlemen. I do have a funny story around the Mulsanne Village when I did visit Le Mans in 2023, and in the end having to do what was the best part of a 10-mile walk as a result of some very poor French. But I'll come back to that story another time if we get some time. But otherwise, I'm sure we can always talk about that another time in another broadcast. But right now, one driver who's not getting lost today is Yang, and he's looking as though he's very much found himself on this grid, and we wish him the best luck on his debut, as we also do to his new teammate of Kwang Li 2, who currently is parked up in the pit lane. Can we get a close-up of the car? No, that's a further back picture. There we go, and you can see it there. Another Porsche 911 RSR, the number 120. He's currently the 10th fastest in the pro class, 23rd overall, and we also wish him the best start as he makes his debut alongside existing driver, of course, of none other than Bruno Key. And well, we look forward to seeing what the WP 300 esports drivers are able to do as he makes his way out the pit lane there. That's perfectly on call. That was not timed or scripted, I can promise you, ladies and gentlemen. But as he makes his way down, trying to get some tyre temperature and getting himself set to go, and we wish them all the best of luck on their debuts. But as we get closer towards the end of this qualifying session, well, we do need to say hello to a few of you in the YouTube chat since the start. In fact, we haven't seen any more of you come on in there, so, well, we'll leave that for now. But what we will do is we will look further afield to getting on board lap with one of our drivers. But who exactly are we going to get a lap with today? Here's the question. Where's John Ludbrook making his way through the Porsche curves at the moment in his Corvette? Looking quite consistent, it must be said. As well, meanwhile, got a few drivers yet to get a lap on the board, including Brandon White in the red and white Porsche 911 RSR. Your pro driver right now, the only pro driver who's yet to get a lap on the board. And well, as he makes his way onwards, understandably, he's going to be hoping that this lap is going to be valid, because if not, he's going to have more work to do. And when you do have a lap time here amounting to just shy of 4 minutes, you don't really get many laps in the 45-minute qualifying session, which we are showing you the final 15 minutes of it or so. Oh, that's gone very wrong there. That is why the GPX Simsport car's going on around. Was Brandon White goes to 35th. That was not what was John Ludbrook getting it wrong. That was his teammate there getting it wrong behind. Ludbrook toes to the pit lane meanwhile. And well, a big shot there. I think that might have been the car of Andrew Fellows going on around. And Andrew Fellows right now is currently 34th fastest, 9th in the interclass. So several drivers not having a happy day at the office. But meanwhile, here comes Mirko Bortolotti. He's purple of everybody towards the end of the lap here. And right at the head of the GazX Racing Team group right now. He's currently full fastest, 3rd of your elite drivers. Can he go one step further here? Can he get himself onto the front row of the grid? Because Miguel Leon is now with Mirko Bortolotti, and the Enosis Esports driver right now is really saying, whatever Bortolotti can do, I can do it too. But Jonoski heads towards the timeline, takes a bit of gravel there. He's got to be careful running out wide, because that might invalidate the lap. And the answer is, it is provisional pole for Mirko Jonovski. It is a 45.05, a very good lap there, 0.53 to the 1,000th. And well, that now puts him 13 thousandths ahead of Bortolotti. So can Jonovski in his BMW M8 spring a surprise here and snatch snatch away pole position. We will wait and see. As meanwhile, we do see Chad Henson making his way on down towards the Porsche curves here. And as he does so in the very colourful liveried Corvette C8R. Right now, 12th fastest elite, 27th overall. And something tells me right now he's going to be very excited to get right in the thick of the battling with his other class peers. Although it won't be worth any points here, so he might have to work quite well with them when they go racing, as otherwise he might be relegated to fighting with Inters and Pros for the day, rather than doing what he wants to do best, which is getting stuck in versus what will be the elite drivers. But that on board lap, we keep digressing. Well, here we go, over to a drive coming towards the end of the current lap, and I think we might be getting on board with him very shortly. We're Pinto Sombolamente, as in fact he makes his way into pit lane. So no, we won't, as he completely makes a ham sandwich of the pit lane entry there. He's got to be careful doing that, because that will cause him to pick up a slowdown, which he'll have to serve before he gets to the pit limiter line, because he hasn't served it. That gets upgraded to a black flag, which he'll now have to park up in the pit lane. And I believe he may actually have to serve that black flag by doing a lap and then coming in for a stop and hold penalty. So that's going to be very punishing. And he's currently a provisional pole sitter in the interclass, but understandably, that is essentially going to end his qualifying session if my understanding of the automated penalty system is correct in qualifying. So I have to wait and see what happens for him. But me on Joris Petersveen, the man who definitely had it all go wrong at Silverstone, and to be fair, he took it on the chin what happened. Indeed, that's the only thing you can do when it all goes wrong in the opening corner of the opening lap, and several drivers come along for the ride with you. But indeed, we're not pointing the finger at him as saying that he was a bad driver by any means. These things do happen in such a competitive field, and everyone, to be fair, is very understanding. As we can see there, Petersveen backing off, and Kevin Smith tugging it behind him. So this is going to be a bit of a game of patience between these two now. Which of these two drivers is going to wait the longest for the other to go on past? And in the end, I think Beam decided, you know what, I'll bring the Inter driver along for a ride with me rather than let him get in front of me. As much as I'd love to, he's clearly set and staying behind me. And well, both drivers there having their own interpretation of how they want qualifying to go. But as we go from there, we come to Handa Yang, and as he makes his way up to what will be the Corvette curves very shortly. And this very corner right now, a very tricky one. Well, we're going to get on board with him for a flying lap with 5 minutes to go, and what will be effectively his penultimate flying lap as he makes his way down in towards the forward chicanes. He's currently 11th fastest, 4th in the Pro class, but can he go a bit further? Well, it's about time to find out, ladies and gentlemen, as we jump aboard with Handa Yang for a flying lap. He's making his way across that timing line, and as he does so, immediately pulling over to the right-hand side here, and I think deciding to back off, so we're not going to get the onboard lap straight away. We do apologise for that. We'll try somebody else very shortly. It's always the way that this happens, as Petersveen gets ready to go onto a lap, and in fact, something tells me he might be gearing up here for a full push lap. So tell you what, we are going to jump on board with this man as he takes us out of the final quarter, and here we go with Joris Petersveen for a flying lap of the Le Mans circuit. So across the timeline he goes here, building up the speed and heading up the gearbox, getting ready for Dunlop curve. As he makes his way in, keeping two wheels to the right of the white line, and as he rolls his way through turn 1, flat out there, and now hard onto the brakes immediately for the Dunlop chicane. Left into right in second gear, and as he cuts those apex curves as much as possible, make sure not to run out too wide. Now under the Dunlop bridge, which is no longer there, and now heading down in towards the S's. Making his way from right into left here as he comes through turn number 6. Very shortly now, rolling into turn number 7, flat out here as he sends the car over the crest and down in towards Tetra Rouge Bend. Here, a quick tap of the brakes to get the weight pitch forward and then shut the car in. As he does so, does he keep two wheels on the exit curb? Yes, he does. He's within track limits, and now he can carry on. Making his way onto the Mulsanne straight, the first of 3 parts. It originally was, of course, one long straight, totaling the best part of what was 3 miles, but it was turned into 3 shorter straights with the addition of chicanes after multiple prototype machines in the 1990s end up taking flight, with top speeds reaching in excess of 320 kilometers an hour. But as he makes one down, that translates into the best part of 200 miles an hour in what is Imperial units. He goes onto the brakes here for the first of Mulsanne chicanes, about 150 meters on the first apex, trail braking all the way down to second gear, and now out the corner he goes. And flat out once again as he makes way into the second stretch. Now as he does so, you'll notice he's making his way into more forestry here, and over on the right hand side for the scenic tour, there's actually a golf course to the right here and right now. Not he's going to have time to take a look there and take up a tee, or even consider what is his path for the course, but there's a golf course hidden in amongst the tree line there, which is sealed off during race day. As he heads on down the public roads of France, and you'll notice that by the white lines in the middle, he'll bring the car to the right hand side, and at a speed of 180 miles an hour, he'll break his way all the way down to 150 meter board into second gear, mount the curve there of the second chicane, and now bolt his way on out and on towards the final stretch. Now here he goes up towards Mulsanne Bend, the furthest point from the start of the circuit, and as he gets ready to go onto the brakes this time, where he'll just simply straight line his way. There's turns 14 and 15. Turn 14, you straight line it as much as possible to set up your braking zone for turn number 15. Petersveen right in the middle of the road at the moment. He'll let the car pull out to the right, and then he'll bring it sharply onto the apex of turn 14 and onto the brakes there 200 meters from corner apex down to first gear, and as he exits the corner now flat out all the way up towards what will be your next braking zone. But as he powers his way along, Peter's been right now definitely looking quick, definitely looking formidable, but he's got one more long stretch to go before he then does get to the point where he's going to start thinking about what is more corners, and it's all going to start at Indianapolis curve. As he makes his way through the two kinks and underneath the Toyota hybrid bridge, well, now he's going to bring the car over to the left-hand side after straightening it for as much as possible, and here, dabble the brakes, drop down from 6th to 5th, and as he now sets the car over to the right-hand side, hard on the brakes here, down to second gear for Indianapolis, as he exits on out, fighting with power oversteer, going over to the left-hand side for Arnage. Onto the brakes nice and early here, 150 meters from corner apex, down to second gear, apex speed of 54 miles an hour, run it all the way out as wide as you dare string to do so, as long as you don't go headfirst into the tyre barrier, and now making his way on the final long stretch. It's going to be up towards the Porsche curves. There's been heavy braking zones followed by low-speed corners. Now it's about medium to high-speed corners here as he gets ready to chuck the car into the very sharp right-hander of turn 25. Inwards he goes then. Dab the brakes for a brief moment. Drop a gear. Drop 2 gears, in fact. Understeers a little wide there, so perhaps braking a bit too late. But he can make up for it now, going through the sweeping double left and through into the right-hander very shortly. Lift off the throttle here. Does he drop a gear to third? Yes, he does. And now holding that apex curve. But get the car positioned well and then turn in for left-hander of the Corvette curves. And as he makes one out, let 2 wheels run wide. Keep 2 within the white lines and you'll be absolutely fine. And now through the kinks, that's the Corvette curves done, and now in towards the forward chicanes. The final 4 corners, using the pit entry line there to set up his braking zone for the first 2. This is all about trail braking his way through down to second gear, and now hard on the brakes here and makes his way through left into right, hold in second, and then flat out as he exits the corner. Lovely lap there from Joris Petersveen. But what's it going to be? In the end, he was 16th. He jumps up to 10th. It's a brilliant lap to complete his qualifying session. He's happy with that. That puts him 8th in the elite class. Thank you to Joris Petersveen for that on-board lap there. And, well, your 251 driver absolutely showing you how it's done here at Le Mans. As meanwhile, Martin Stattmann runs wide, and when his frustration immediately tosses the car at the barrier there. And, well, I think the GazX Racing Team will not be too happy about the fact he's just cost them the best part of what will be tens of thousands of pounds to repair that car. Albeit, I think he will be very frustrated at the fact that right now Stattmann, who is 6th, he wanted to be on that second row of the grid at least. And, well, small mistake there, Tetrage ran it out wide. And in the end, well, that is his qualifying session done and dusted. With 10 seconds left on the clock, we do look to the Inox Motorsport pair here of Matthias Pettinger and none other than Benjamin Massey together. I do believe that's Massey right behind. Yes, it is, and right now they're trying to help Massey get further up the order. And having the slipstream qualifying is going to be highly beneficial. But right now, to the benefit of Chris Round, he's got the two of the GazX Racing Team cars in front of him, as that's going to be Christian Ablasser and A. Roster together as Round loses it coming from the final corner. He does get it back together, but that's going to completely scupper what's looking to be a personal best. He does improve, but by no means as much as he wanted to. He lost half a second on that quarter exit. It could have been a 48.6, which would have put him all the way up into the company of what was essentially Flavin Thierry, but then he improves to 13th place only, and he's going to be absolutely kicking himself for that. But the reason you are seeing that happen with these cars, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact they are running minimum downforce setups. They have to go for top end speed here at Le Mans in order to get the best possible laps, but through those corners towards the very end, that is where you really do need to be careful with the car, because you've got no downforce over the rear end, and therefore the rear of the car will sliver around like a snake, and that's what we saw there for Chris Round, just carrying too much speed and too much rotation in his Porsche 911 RSR, and in the end it all meant to pot. But meanwhile, we do say hello to Izzy Pop there, and good evening to you. I hope you're doing well, and a big smile on your face saying this should be good, and I'm with you on that. And the same as what Kitty's Mad says earlier, which is excited for some epic race around here. It's always epic at Le Mans, although it is very strategic as well, as we do see our Inox Motorsport cars making their way towards the end of their laps. Well, they both run out wide there, so I think in the end, they both lost a bit of time. They decide to run wide coming out of what was the Porsche curves, and I think the mission objective has been failed there, as they'll come on home, but understandably they will not be improving because they have invalidated their laps. And in the race, if you run out wide there coming out of the final part of the what was the Corvette curves, you will be picking up a significant slowdown penalty to the tune of about 1.5 seconds. It is a very punishing slowdown penalty, but as both of our drivers come to a halt here on the start-finish straight, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's qualifying complete, and well, it is going to be pole position for none other than Marinko Jornovsky, who takes his first pole of the season. just ahead of Mirko Bortolotti over on an elite class. And then meanwhile in pro, it's Angel Adonis with 4th overall, another pole position hit for him. The best part of 5 places ahead of Matthias Pettinger, with Jan Lintz a further 2 behind. And then in the interclass, Pinto Somalovente has taken another pole position, 20th overall, just ahead of Kevin Smith, with an absolute duel between those two. And it's a sizable gap back to John Lubbock in 28th, who'll be starting 3rd in the interclass. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying is most certainly complete. The circuit does go silent for a brief while, and well, drivers who did not get a lap time on the board, Justin Noel and Albert Prish. Prish did have 7 laps out there, but was unable to get a valid lap in. Justin Noel opting not to qualify, and what I do believe that might be influenced potentially by some student outcomes from earlier on in the season. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are almost all set and ready to go to our warm-up period, and after that we'll be absolutely gold and green lighted to go racing. But of course we do have an extended wait time here before we transition over to the warm-up period, given the length of lap, so we do just have to take a little bit of a breather as we do say hello to a number more of you in the YouTube chat, including none other than Verano Esport, who's wishing all the best of luck to the Verano drivers tonight and saying this is going to be an interesting adrenaline-fueled race. I definitely agree with you there. And we also do say hello to JG1977, who says good evening all, here for Team Brian Beardsworth, and let's go. And in terms of Brian Beardsworth, where's he qualified? He has qualified in 34th place, or what does equate to 8th in the interclass, and I think he's going to be happy with that, to be fair to him, given the fact he is surrounded by inter drivers, including Chris Susky right in front of him, who's back today after missing Silverstone, and also Andrew Fellows just behind. But as all drivers get set, I believe we are just waiting for that transition still, and well, ladies and gentlemen, it shouldn't be too far away. And we'll just know clarifying there in the YouTube chat. And thank you, Justin, for clarifying. Indeed, we wanted to double check and we appreciate it. The fact that you've been able to say no penalties for me, just haven't been totally focused. So I'd rather start in the back. And well, to be fair, it's a good opportunity to try and make your way through the field, and if everyone does play the game of slipstream quite well, you never know where you can end up, to be fair. And indeed, that's the one thing about Le Mans as well. When it goes right around here, you can gain a lot of pace by simply working with the drivers around you. Conversely, when it goes wrong, it can end up in absolute tears very quickly, and indeed, an instant at the start of the race may collect several cars, or even down the Mulsanne Straight, you may find in the end several cars being caught up there. And add in the fact that you do have to be concerned about the worry of slowdown penalties, which are always going to serve to change things up here. And if you pick up a slowdown at Tech Rouge, alternatively at any of the Mulsanne chicanes, you'll be losing the best part of at least 2 to 3 seconds, and that can suddenly pull you well out of the running order of where you are and send you a long way back. And so slowdown penalties are going to be just as painful as what will be a poor qualifying lap, or indeed anything else that happens out there, and it will be very interesting to see exactly who benefits from them and who lose out as time goes on. We also do say hello there to Braves Pat, who says me and King Felix are about it, woohoo, and woohoo indeed to you guys, but we are just still waiting for this long transition away from what is our qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. And well, as we do sit here and wait, well, if you haven't had a chance yet to go get yourself some liquid refreshment, we definitely recommend it, because we've got a long race ahead. And indeed, if you haven't got some popcorn or a snack of your choosing, this is also a good time, because we will have a 5-minute warm-up period very shortly, and well, after that we will be going at green flag racing. But as all our drivers eagerly await going, we also do say hello there. Well, in fact, we do see a bit of confirmation there. Just Noel saying, didn't know there were other US military vets here. Glad I'm not the only one. And indeed, we do have quite a few vets, I do believe, in the chat. And also, I didn't know that Just Noel was a military veteran, so I'm learning something new today. But speaking of things new on screen, we've now made our way into the warm-up session. So we've got 5 minutes here in which our drivers to try and get some practice in. And as always, why do they go out in this warm-up session, particularly at Le Mans, where you're never going to get a lap on the board, or you may just get the one in? Well, the idea is here, given the fact that time gradually moves us on over the course of the race day, and we do not model static conditions here at SimRacing International, we do have evolving conditions as the day goes on. No sign of rain, we should point out, given the fact that GT machines currently do not have rain-enabled tyres on the simulator. We do hope that arrives at some point in the near future on iRacing, because that would be the complete package for our wonderful GT machines. Well, the fact of the matter is the conditions evolve where we will see time advance, and on top of that it does mean that track temperature will change. So will the cloud layers, so will the amount of sun exposure, etc. And we do have an ambient temperature right now of 19 degrees centigrade. Track temperature has fallen a bit from 24 degrees degrees centigrade in qualifying, down to 21, given we've had that lull between qualifying and the warm-up. So therefore it means that this circuit right now is not going to see what will be the tyres warm up as much as they would in other respects, and therefore we've got a relatively cool circuit to go racing at here, and that's all going to be important for the strategy, and also on the initial lap how our drivers essentially attack the lap in order to get those tyres warmed up. And we have seen over the course of what have been previous round, cold tyres in the early stages of the day have sometimes outfoxed and outwitted some drivers, and well, they've got to bring those tyres up to temperature, and then they've got to be ready to keep them in the ideal temperature window. Now, of course, we do have different cars here, and each car reacts to tyre temperatures differently. If you're looking at the Corvettes, for example, such as that of Benjamin Massey for iRacing Motorsport, or indeed some of the other Corvettes such as Callum Lux here, who's back today, which is great to see for the Enns Brothers competition driver, back here, albeit not quite up towards the very front in the Elite Class qualifying session. Well, the Corvettes do have the greatest operating window when it comes to their tyre temperatures, and therefore they do have the greatest tyre longevity over the stints. They normally are the best cars over long-term pace. Meanwhile, at the other end of the spectrum, the Ferraris, the Ferrari 488 Evos, of which none are on the circuit at the moment, we only do have two on this grid, Mirko Bortolotti and also Craig Tillotson from Elite to Inter. Well, the Ferraris meanwhile have a very narrow window, and if they go outside that, they will start to overheat, or alternatively have too cool a tyre and they will absolutely decimate tyre life. Other cars meanwhile sit in the middle, including Lux's teammates Ford GT of Julian Eichenlaub with the Enns Brother Competition 240 here. We know the Ford GT is a car that's right in the middle when it comes to tyre management. And this is a car that's going to be of two halves here today. On the long straight, it is going to struggle to a degree compared to some of its rivals. It is a car that's known to have to invest a lot or take away a lot from the car's strengths, the natural strengths, in order to get the best possible top end speed. And the strengths of this car are in medium and high speed corners. The Porsche curves and also the Corvette curves are the strength for this car as they run into Indianapolis, whereas those long straights, well, you do have to sacrifice a lot of the downforce that this car naturally generates in order to be able to get the long straight line speed. So therefore, Eichenlaub is going to pull away from some of the strengths. We can imagine our Ford GT drivers may find themselves having to battle upstream here compared to some of the other machinery. Now, meanwhile, our Porsches, such as that of Sylvain Depech, who's decided to park up there off of the main road. He's decided to park up on one of the side roads there. So therefore, he's done a bit of a scenic moment. I can't blame for that. We do look to Mikael Avasek, meanwhile, and your Slovenian driver here in his Porsche 911 RSR for iRacing Motorsport. We know the Porsche is a very safe car. It's a very stable car, and it also does incredibly well on low-speed traction. So hairpins and corners such as Mulsanne, and also with the run of, say, our chicanes and our nudge, that's where the Porsche will really be key. It'll be able to fly high. And meanwhile, we do, of course, look to what is none other than your BMWs. And Chris Susky going to the BMW M8 for the remainder of the season compared to his previous Ford GT. And well, the BMW, meanwhile, is a car that we know is very quick over a single lap. It really is a straight line beast as well, the quickest on the straights. And unfortunately, meanwhile, it does have a habit of overheating tyres and brakes in particular. The brakes of the BMW are not as desirable as the other cars, but of course, that's all part of the balance of performance, and this is quite a heavy car and a bulky car at that. But the BMW M8 machine, of course, it does have many a nickname, including the Giga Grill. And well, this car didn't race in GT in the last couple of years, but it raced all the way up to including 2020, and it was always known for being the car that was a little bit more obtuse compared to its rivals, but a lovely car at that. Although, if you're looking for something in regards to BMW, and an interesting fact, the BMW M8 out of all the modern M series cars, despite all its popularity in the World Endurance Championship and also IMSA, never sold that well globally, and it's only now being seen as a future classic with its none other than its twin-turbo V8 engine. But without further ado, as Susky brings himself down to the start-finish straight, well, the warm-up session is complete, ladies and gentlemen. It is time then for us to go racing. But who exactly is going to be your winner here at Le Mans? Well, it's time to find out as our drivers seek to outlast the challenge presented to them in round number 7 of Season 1 of the SimRacing International GTE Championship here in France. And so as they all make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll all line up for our 7th instalment of the championship calendar. Mirko Bortolotti takes his first ever pole position, elite and overall for GazX Racing Team JRM. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by none other than Mirko Bortolotti, the GazX Racing MCM driver, making it a sister team 1-2. And then at OCC Sports, Miguel Leon was only in a 10th behind. He lines up in 3rd. A good lap from him. Angel Dones, your pro pole sitter, joins his teammate on the 2nd row of the grid, the Spaniard looking smart. Then we do have Callum Lux on his return, not quite on the front 2 rows, but he has made it to to the third row for Jens Brothers competition, just ahead of Martin Stattmann for GazX Racing MCM. We then do have Tim Perry for Altitude Frame Esports. Always count on him to be right inside that top 10. He starts in 7th, a further 10th behind. And then Sylvain Depeche, who starts 8th today for Cube Racing Team, while the home heroes, can he go forward? Can he take a top 5? Then we do have the second of your pros, Matthias Pettinger for Inox Motorsport in 9th place. He's done well in qualifying, but he's got work to do. Ahead of Joris Petersveen, who rounds off your top 10 and hoping for a much more straightforward day. In 11th, it's going to be Jan Lindstedt, the third of your pros for GazX Racing JRM, just ahead of his teammate René Rustler. They'll be looking to work together from the outset. Christian Ablasser sits behind them, the sister team driver for GazX Racing MCM, and just ahead of Hunda Yang. We do see there your debutant from China, starting 14th for WePay 300 Esports, just ahead of Benjamin Massey for Inox Motorsport. Adrian Vlok completes your first 8 rows, and on row number 9 behind him, behind the HS Racing Dry, it's going to be Julian Eichenlau for Jens Brothers competition. Cedric Boyce will join him on row number 9 in 18th place for Cube Racing Team, just ahead of Ryan Walker for Altitude Frame Esports. And then we do have, starting on pole position for what will be your Inter drivers, Pinto Sombolavente, and well, he'll be very keen to go green flag racing from there, knowing that it's not too far back to Kevin Smith, the second of the Inter drivers, in 22nd for Rhino Academy. But between the two of them, it's going to be Flavien Tieffry for ID File competition. Then on row 12, it'll be Mikhail Abasek for Inox Motorsport, just ahead of what will be none other than Kwang Li 2 on his debut. And then we do have Chad Henson, 25th for Los Dos Bravado, ahead of John Shamblin for Dynasty Motorsports. Chris Round didn't quite have the qualifying points he wanted, but the Axis SimSport driver is not going to be frowning at that. He's ahead of John Ludbrett for GPX SimSport Xenon. And then round off your top 30, it's Logan Timberlake for Sim Party Racing and Brandon White for ID File competition. Outside the top 30, Robin Aston on his debut starts 31st, ahead of Bruno Key for WePay 300 Esports, ahead of Chris Susky for China Shot Racing and Brian Beardsworth. Then we do have Andrew Fellows, 35th for GPX SimSport Xenon, ahead of his teammate from the sister team of Onyx, that's James Bostock. And then it's going to be the theme of Inters as Chris Keenan starts 37th for MRC, ahead of Rhino Academy's Craig Tillotson, with Virgilio Garcia for the privateer ahead of Albert Parrish for Enosis Esports completing your top 40. Outside the top 40, starting 41st, last but not least, it is going to be Justin Noel. And drama already, ladies and gentlemen, because your Inter-Championship leader of Sombra Levente has started from the pit lane. Something has gone wrong for him on the grid. So that means Kevin Smith has been promoted to pole in what will be the Inter-class. So suddenly, this has all been turned upside down. But will be more be turned upside down here over the course of 60 minutes of racing action. Well, the whole field comes along here. And when you do have the best part of over 20,000 horsepower ready to go green flag racing, they come too wide for the last couple of quarters, and well, for the first time this season, it's going to be to Marinko Jornovsky to take us away for 60 minutes of racing action here at Le Mans. And it's lights out, away he goes. It's a big spin there for Callum Lux. He goes back across the road, and as he does so, it's a disaster already. There's a car in the middle of the road there, and when it just parked up, pointed sideways, and then it does tow. But for Callum Lux, it's all gone wrong before he's even been able to do a meter. Another car being caught up there as well. René Rosser, Julian Eichenlau has been caught up. So 3 cars all out of this, as meanwhile the whole field makes its way up through the Dunlop chicane. And as they do, it goes wrong for Miguel Leon in contact there with what's I think Tim Perry's car. Leon goes flying on the round. More cars going around here. They're all struggling for grip. Flavien Tieffry gets it wrong, and well, as Tieffry goes down for ID file competition, well, surely somebody's got to get right here, as right now we are losing drives left, right and centre. Callum Lux, meanwhile, has had to retire for the race due to that damage to the car immediately, and Julian Eichenlau, meanwhile, is probably going to try and get to the end of this lap and see what he can do after taking a fast repair, but it's not a good start for many, but those who've been able to make progress right now will be salivated at the prospect. There's more ground to be made, as meanwhile we look to Chris Susky, who finds himself comfortably back up into 6th place in the Interclass, just ahead of Brian Beardsworth and James Bostock. As all these drivers roar the way onwards, we're right now charging the way onto the Mulsanne Straight for the first time. Well, those who've been able to survive it all right now can settle down, enjoy a bit of a long run, and Mikhail Abasek being one of those drivers here as he finds himself side by side with John Shamblin, albeit Shamblin in him will tuck him behind him here, as right now the Inox Motorsport green machine, different livery on the car today, well, he's going to be running ahead in the 9th place spot of the Pro class. For goodness me, what a dramatic start to this race we've had, ladies and gentlemen. Further back, Virgilio Garcia with Justin Noel. Noel already ahead of the privateer. And right now, the military vet making his way onwards as meanwhile, Ablasser goes sideways. A small prank there, I think, with Miguel Leon's car. And in the end, Ablasser coming off the worst of 2. And the GazX Racing M-Sim driver will be absolutely fuming at that. These are last year runners in this long line of cars. But meanwhile, back to the front as we do see Mirko Bortolotti right now make his way onwards here after getting the lead off Marinko Jornovsky at the start of the race. Right now, he started to pull away as quickly as he can in the Ferrari 488 Evo. We will get a replay of what exactly happened at the start for our drivers in due course, but right now we're keeping what is the focus on the live racing. As our leader tries to bolt away, and then the rest of the field is getting much closer to each other. But Jan Lintz here right now giving a little bit of a push there to the back of Martin Stattmann, but he's going to look up the inside in towards turn 14. That's more to provide defence there for Stattmann. As meanwhile, we can see Joris Petersveen and Benjamin Massey all queuing up behind. So this is now going to be a race of tactics as Adrian Block battles side by side with Handa Yang. Yang trying to make his way a little bit further forward versus Benjamin Massey, and Block meanwhile just tucking him behind here as he now tries to pick up the speed. But the Australian driver now pulls it out HS Racing 1. That was short-lived. This is going to go around the outside here with Cedric Boyce closing in for company. And the elite driver here, I think, is worried. The pro drive swallowing him up. Manian actually starts to cost him a bit of time and also cost him the chance to chase after more elite places. First up, of course, is Petersveen, who is right in front of him there. As you can see, as they make their way towards Indianapolis, he goes around the outside of Yang. And, well, that's going to be a place overall gained. Further back, Robin Aston here. He's had a breeze all start to race. He has lost 2 places now in the interclass, or has he? As Suski tries to go around the outside into the inside of Indianapolis corner. Aston then gives it so much real estate to play with. In fact, he puts 2 wheels beyond the white lines there. That sends him wide. Ferrari Craig Tillotson also goes wide, but does rejoin safely. And into the braking zone now, 2 by 2 by 2. They come! As that comes in very hot for Victor Supplemente. And then into the back there, Albert Prisch takes the rear bumper off of the Corvette. And Sonny, the BMW driver there, a little bit too eager perhaps with the dirty air. And well, both drivers there coming across. It is getting a little bit spicy between these two. That's probably the best way to describe it. And I think right now, understandably, Prisch is not too happy about what's happened. Well, he's going to give the space in the end to the Hungarian driver, but I think when they get out their cars after the racing today, there might be some words, as we see the 91 going around the outside there of the NOCC Sports car, and something tells me as he goes to the wall. My goodness, it's not a clean run as he goes wrong. Oh, what is there, Prisch? It goes loose completely. Oh, no! And that's Garcia right into the side of the stricken Corvette, and both cars there coming in arrears as they'll tow to the pit lane. Here's drama towards the end of the lap as it was at the very start of the lap, and that's just lap number 1 of many, ladies and gentlemen. As meanwhile into the pits there comes Julian Eichenlaub. He decides he's got to come in because of the meatball flag, and that means there's repair work that's needed. Thankfully he's got a fast repair, but this is going to force him surely now into a 2-stop. His race now is really at the mercy of the racing gods, as meanwhile everyone else carries on. But as more battling commences, Miguel Leon still trying to make his way up through the order after a dismal start with that contact coming out of Dunlop chicane. We believe it was between himself and Tim Perry, but not 100% sure. He's got Brian Beardsworth there right behind him in the Rothmans livery Porsche. Indeed, that's a throwback to the era of the Porsche 962 era of Porsches, if I remember correctly. And indeed, that's a special livery for Le Mans, no doubt about it. But as they make their way onwards, what about the very front? Well, your leader is Mirko Bortolotti, leading right now over an elite by 3 seconds almost over Andrew Adonis, your pro leader in second. Then we do have Rinko Jornowski sat in third ahead of Sylvain Depeche, who's had a brilliant start to this race and the home hero right now, up from 8th to 4th as quick as that. He's then going to have Matthias Pettinger right behind the second of your pros with Martin Stattmann, then Jan Lintz, then Benjamin Massey. And then we do have Tim Perry, Adrian Block, and Joris Petersveen completing the run of best the rest to 11th, with Petersveen losing out to serve a slowdown for track limits. But now a slowdown here for Matthias Pettinger, taking way too much curb at the Mulsanne chicane number 1, and therefore he's got to bleed that now. And what he will do here is he will very slowly lift off the throttle and just keep the throttle about 60% for this straight. The idea is he doesn't want to lose too much speed. He has to lose some, but he will burn that slowdown by the time he gets to the next braking zone, and therefore he will stay with the pack in front of him. That's the aim of the game, and it'll be great for the Benjamin Massey is now the car in front of him, because he can say to his teammate from Inox Motorsport, can you please wait for me and give me a hand? As Pettinger makes way for that second chicane, and we've still got a bit of the slowdown to burn. He hasn't quite timed it right, but it is very challenging. As meanwhile, we've got a black flag for James Bostock further back here. I don't know how he's managed to achieve that. I presume it's by not serving a slowdown within the allotted time, unless somehow he's been able to pick up all the instant points that quickly. Well, if so, that's a record surely for the season. The GPX Super Onyx driver in a different livery car today, their alternate livery, and well, he does have Susky and Levente behind with Chris Keenan as well. Things getting very delicate here in amongst all these drivers. We ride on board with Keenan making his way down the next stretch, but understandably right now he won't be aware necessarily of the black flag for James Bostock, but he will see at some point Bostock step aside, and when he does so, well, then he's going to be able to pick up a place. But all the BMWs in front right now, looking left, looking right, as Bostock pulls over. Hold up a second. Susky going straight on there, and Bostock going out. I think Susky thought he needed to follow Bostock, and he's made a complete mess of that. Well, Keenan immediately now come out of the corner, coming out of Mulsanne here, and well, Flavien Thierry passed the ball, but Chris Keenan in the end is able to pick up the place. That was a really odd moment there. I think Bostock Christoph has towed to the pit lane effectively because of the black flag, but I think Suski was absolutely transfixed to looking at the rear of the leading BMW, and as a result there, then Sonny realised, oh, hold up a second, he's pulling off the road, there's no point for me to go into Mulsanne Village, and well, that was a very odd moment, but it happened. And meanwhile, Keenan battling side by side here with Tiefri as they make their way through Indianapolis curve and into the major braking zone, and Tiefri goes around the outside, and lovely move there for the pro driver, and leaving the inter drive behind as Chris Suski and Justin Noel queue up behind. Noel dives to the inside here versus Suski. He's going to make this as simple as textbook operations, and he does so, the American driver, as he moves up into 32nd place. There's still more to come as Chris Round here, after a bit of a struggling start, he makes his way now in towards what be his next braking zone. This will be side by side with Brian Beardsworth here, albeit the pro driver on the inside versus the inter driver. He doesn't really need to fight this, neither one of them does, and in the end Beardsworth lets it go. They're playing smart, and Beardsworth in 5th place from 8th place start in the interclass. He's very happy to see himself up there. He knows he's got a lot more work to do before the day is done. As we do say hello there to Richard Voss and also Chaz Graycott. And hold up a second, look away for a brief moment, and Brian Beardsworth goes spinning on around there, and that's going to be right towards the run into the Corvette curves. I don't know how he's managed to achieve that. We'll get a replay of that soon enough, but my goodness, Brian Beardsworth, if you leave him alone for a minute, it all goes wrong. You've got to feel for him, and as he brings it back together, well, meanwhile, we do look back towards what will be the back end of the top 15. Here we do see the WP300 esports machines of Yang and Tu together, but not if Matthias Painter's got anything to say about it as he goes up the inside of the one that went deep. That's Kwangli 2 going very deep under braking into turn number 2, and here comes Ryan Walker as well. Walker now on the attack here as he looks to go all in. We jump aboard with the Altitude 3M esports driver, 7th in pro, but right now 9 has even more places to go here, and he does not want to be caught up behind a Borshevic struggling. He has got the interleader behind him of Kevin Smith, albeit Smith at this point surely he'll just be watching these guys. He won't want to play a running role in them, but as they make their way now onto the first of the Mulsanne stretches, well, what can the Scotsman do here other than just simply tuck in? We do know this Ford GT is normally down a little bit on the start on the straights compared to what is the rest of its peers, unless it takes away all its straight line speed, and Walker right now not staying in the toe there. I think he just wants to play the game of witness and watch rather than get involved. Well, Edinger goes defensive, then 2 looks one way, and then they all start lifting off as Walker gets very close to under braking. He's got to look around the outside, and in the end, well, I think everyone's got their own vision of how this is playing out, and in the end, all those different storylines are suddenly merging together, and all these drivers right now, they can't come up with a coherent story, so that's why we're seeing 3 different cars lifting and braking at different points, and will they somehow all survive it, and long may it continue, please. As they made their way onto the second stretch, well, from them, Yang is trying to pull away a little bit, with Pessinger 6 tenths behind him. And then they've got a sizable gap to Benjamin Massey to the tune of 5.5 seconds. So therefore Massey and Lintz, I think, are enjoying their little scrap for second place in the pro class. And it really is the question of who's going to be the 4th place man here. But they've still got plenty of time in the tail for that. And then we look up to your elite leaders, as there's Angel Adonis, your pro leader, just pulling away. And then we do have your 2nd place elite driver, Marinko Jornowski, still bringing Sylvain Depeche along. And Depeche right now definitely trying to push onwards here. He is trying to break up the BMW pack. His Porsche 911 RSR, and well, he'll be hoping at this point, all he's got to do for now is stay with these BMWs and keep within the group as we briefly lose him to the E3 and he comes on back. But if he can stay with them, the aim of the game here is that essentially what he can do is wear them down on tyre life but also on brake life. Keep an eye on the course, in GTE racing we do not see the fuel and tyres done simultaneously in the pit lane, they are done separately, which does mean for these 60-minute races at least, drivers will use the same set of tyres for the entire race. It's only fuel they'll take in the pit lane. We know that the Porsche has much better tyre life typically compared to the BMWs, even here at Le Mans, where there's a lot less tyre degradation, there's a lot more hard work on the brakes, and it's those brakes of the BMW that will really be exposed here compared to the Porsches. As meanwhile, that's Benjamin Massey getting a roll coming out of Indianapolis as Tim Perry goes up the inside in there, and Massey's not going to have a response to that other than just simply tucking behind. He can't respond to that given the instant, but meanwhile, whilst that's all going on, we come back here to Robin Aston versus Pinto Somolovente, the Hungarian driver who started from the pit lane after achieving pole position in qualifying in the class. We didn't want to risk it at all. He's got the championship in his mind, and in the end, Robin Aston getting back ahead in there, and right now these two fighting over 5th place. But it's crazy to think he's already slashed his deficit to the front of the field by a whole 2/3 in terms of his class. So right now, I think he's going to be happy with how things are going. I think he also respects the fact that there's still more work to do. But as he makes his way up towards the Porsche curves, we're going to leave them there for a brief moment and take a look back at exactly what happened right at the start of the race. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for a trip back in time. So this was right at the start of the race as all drivers went green flag racing, and well, Sylvain Depech being one of many. But the big question mark we have is what exactly happened to Callum Lux. When in the end he got the power down, he was ejected and then ricocheted off the wall, and at that point, understandably, well, you can see Julian Eichenhoff just went into the wrong place at the right time to be collected. Can we get the alternative camera from Callum Lux? We can. Is this going to show us any better as he made his way through the corners? The answer is no, not really. So, well, it looks like he either cut across there or he was collected and turned across. I wonder if we can get the on-board or from other cars behind. Can we see it from Julian Eichenhoff's perspective, perhaps? Will that help us understand and pick this apart? Well, no, we can't, but what we can do is quickly get an on-board here with Lux as he made his way out of the corner. Went to go green flag racing, pulled across, and I think he was then collected by one of the GazX Racing Team cars that centre around, and at that point, he's just a passenger in the car. Meanwhile, we did have this happen for René Russler in that whole sequence as well. He ended up getting caught up in it. He was one of the drivers who ended up getting caught on Lux's wreckage, and the GazX Racing Team JRM driver just crawling on along, got it off the road as quickly as he could. Now we had what was a bit of drama happen a bit later on for none other than what was Virgilio Garcia. And this was Garcia making his way in towards what was the left-hander of the Porsche curves, and as he did so, well, he's going to find an Gnosis Esports car right in front of him very shortly. There it is, of Albert Parrish. But how exactly did Parrish go wrong in the first place? Well, here's a replay for that. And this was, well, in fact, this was much earlier. So Parrish initially battling here and under braking. Well, there explains it. That was the contact that he received from what's Pinto Somo Levente, who outbroke himself into our large bend, and then Parrish lost it a bit later on in that big instant. And this was then Parrish having it go wrong for him with no rear to the car, understanding the lack of downforce, and made his way into the corner. The rear came loose there in the distant camera shot, and he went spinning across the road, and Garcia having nowhere to go. But from him, we then did have, of course, what was this big instant for Miguel Leon right at the start of the race as well. He had a bit of an altercation with Tim Perry. What was the Dunlop chicane? They made the one through, too wide they exited, and he lost the rear there, and he self-righted on the side of Perry's car. Perry did nothing wrong there other than existed, and in the end, Leon, I think, as the car straightened out, it snapped on him again as he tried to get the power down, and that's why he went on around. But to be fair to Miguel Leon, since then, he's actually been on quite the recovery drive. He's got a lot more work to do, no doubt about it, as we've got some work to do by heading back to your live pictures. And as we do, well, more surely to come. We've still got the best part of 46 minutes plus a final lap of racing here. Meanwhile, as we come back to your third place driver, Jornovsky, well, as he makes way now after what will be Angel Adonis. Adonis is reading the postcode of his own at this point in the pro class, although Jan Lintz would say that he might be able to catch up to him at this rate, not because Lintz is at the back of this quartet. He'll make his way through the right to left here. He's just going to play the tactical game. They all are at this point. Le Mans is definitely now going to take a big step back into what will be its traditional, it's to me, to you, fuel saving. Will we see anybody try to be a little bit daring? Well, Ryan Walker and Matthias Pettinger, they're still looking at each other, raising eyebrows, as Handa Yang has actually bolted away in this group. So we've now gone from 3 cars battling for 4th in Pro to 2 cars battling for 5th in the class. To see what exactly that means for Yang's strategy, because he seems to be the quicker one. Pettinger, meanwhile, started 2nd. I wonder if he's got a little bit of damage on that car. He did pick up a slowdown early on in the race, which did pull him backwards into this group. But I just wonder whether he perhaps picked up a slight knock at the open lap instant, and therefore that's cost him a bit of time as well. Because this is not the confidence we saw from the Inox Motorsport Corvette driver in qualifying. If anything, it seems to be whittled back a little bit here as he plays it safe, makes his way through the Porsche curves, doesn't get too close to that wall. And I think right now just trying to get into a mode of consistency, which is definitely going to be invaluable when the week goes on. But further back, looking to your pro class, John LeBrook versus Logan Timberlake. And as Timberlake continues to chase, well, he started in 4th place in the interclass. He's up in the 3rd, and right now chasing after 2nd. And are we going to see a return to the podium here for the American driver? I think he would love to do that as we ride on board with your 23. Right now, well, look, only 3 tenths in front of him. It sounds a very small margin, but when you think about it right now, every tenth matters as he goes a bit deep down to braking, and in the end, the dirt here just cools in the front end of the car to travel. Well, right now for Logan Timberlake, it's these little mistakes. Those are the things that have cost him places over the course of the season, but he is eyeing them out little by little, and it's been great to see the Sim Party Racing driver move forward as time has gone on, but they're definitely not moving forward the way he wants to, perhaps a bit too far forward, you could say, as he now makes way onto lap number 5, and again goes deep there, coming through the Dunlop chicane. And the problem is, I think after he's made the one mistake, And this is not being unfair to him. I think after the one error under braking, it gets into your head as a driver. In these GT machines, because you have no ABS, the difficulty is you have to find a biting point with your own feet. And keep in mind, of course, that most of these drivers, I suspect, will be racing with both feet. So they'll have the throttle pedal with their right foot and the brakes with their left foot, which I wouldn't encourage you to do on a normal road, ladies and gents, but until you practice it a little bit. But as he makes his way on down right now, what Timberlake will be finding is, after making one mistake under braking with his left foot, his muscle memory, when he tries to do it again, will now be out of sorts. He's got to try and tweak that muscle memory back in. And Cedric Boyce here and Chad Henderson behind. They enjoy a little bit of a battle further down the order. They're fighting over 21st, albeit the elite driver here on the right of your picture to try and clear what will be your pro driver. But the home hero here in the 179, well, the Cube Racing Team for GT stays ahead for now. But Hansen definitely trying to find a way to get a little bit closer. Doesn't want to find it too hard as to lose pace, but he definitely knows he wants to get closer to Timberlake and continue to make his way forward, because Miguel Leon is the target and Leon's up in 16th, whereas Henson down in 22nd. He's got a little way to go. As they make their way past our cameras, we hear the lovely roar of the engines, particularly that Porsche screaming there in excess of 9,000 RPM. And these drives even further back. We looked at Andrew Fellows as he chased after Brian Beardsworth, who had that big moment earlier on, and we didn't quite get a replay of what happened to Brian Beardsworth. It was on lap number 2. I wonder if we can get a replay. Yes, we can. And this is what happened to Brian Beardsworth, who was running at the time in 5th in the interclass. So the prize here made his way into the final corner of the Porsche curves, and as he did so, went a bit deep, rear of the car stepped loose. Oh my goodness! And around the outside in there, that, I believe, was Robin Aston there taking evasive action, and Robin Aston finding so much grip there on the marbles. Well, well done to him for doing so. That could have been absolute tears, but it was not. In the end, Brian Beardsworth going a full 360, but it could have been far worse for both drivers there. Well done to them both for surviving that one. Back to live racing, we look to Ryan Walker as he battles with Matthias Pettinger. This is for 5th in pro, and well, the Ford GT driver here thinks he's got the time to go as he looks up the inside. Adventure with the inside, he goes from outside to inside now to the brakes, and as he does so, well, that's bringing John Shamblon to the back of this group. And also your interleader, Kevin Smith. But here comes Pettinger swinging back to the inside. He's not happy with that. He's going to fight this. He outbrakes himself. Goes side across the road. And Walker in the end is able to stop in the nick of time. And he's able to squeeze his way around the Corvette. Plus also avoid the tyre barrier and the exit there of Arnage. And well, there's definitely defending. And then there's spinning. And I think Matthias Pettinger is going for a hybrid of the two. But unfortunately, not working out for him. That was a big lock up under braking and plenty of inside corner. And in the end, pulls himself off the road there for a brief moment. I think he's checking the steering wheel right now to see where it's still working as expected. That was completely unexpected there. But thankfully, neither driver being ruled out of the race. But Matthias Pettinger definitely losing out a lot of places, and Walker as well, losing out to John Shamblin. I think Walker's got the confidence right now to know he can still get back, as we do see all those cars roaring the way past the static camera at full speed there. But goodness me, it definitely was a major error there. And well, to John Shamblin we go, and he's got your interleader, Kevin Smith, behind him. Now Smith at this point will be looking to the back of the Dynasty Motorsports machine and ask himself, do I pass him or do I not? And well, there'll be the little devil on his right hand shoulder saying, yes you do, Kevin. And the angel on his left hand shoulder will be saying, well, he's running similar pace to you, why not just fuel save off him? You don't need to pass him. You've got a huge gap to the rest of the interfield. You don't need to risk it. Build up a strategic race rather than an overall race. But understanding as a driver, you have to balance the devil and the angels on your shoulder over the distance, as Miguel Leon, meanwhile, now moves into 14th place. He's continuing his journey up, with Ryan Walker now falling in behind. But understandably, I think Leon right now has got a lot more to lose when it comes to the Elite Championship, as he's a bit worried about the fact that that championship lead he's held on to for quite some time. When things finish as they currently stand, he would be losing it, and it would be Mirko Bortolotti who become your championship leader with only 3 rounds remaining. But more twists in the tail. We have got a couple of slowdown penalties being applied. Jan Lintz has just served one, and Tim Perry has one as well, as he continues to try and burn it. That's in the run all the way down towards what will be the first chicane on the Mulsanne. As we do see some cars swapping places. There's Adrian Vlock, meanwhile, pulling out of the toe of Benjamin Massey. He has cleared Joris Peters Veem as well. And Vlock right now is absolutely flying for HTS Racing. And well, I can tell you one thing, what he's had to drink to get himself awake in the early hours of the morning in Australia right now, well, I'll definitely have what he's having, because he's absolutely flying out there, and it's brilliant to see. We do love seeing the 270 driver. He's had some very interesting results this season. Some have been great, some have been disastrous, but right now, he's definitely putting on a masterclass here as he makes his way down towards the second chicane. From here, we then make our way a little bit further up the order. Mirko Bortolotti still having Sylvain Depesche and Martin Stattmann for close company. These three, they've been practically inseparable since the start, albeit Adonis and Bortolotti have both checked out up the road. But understanding for Bortolotti right now, what can he do here other than just run his pace and potentially try to do a bit of lift and coasting? Because the problem he has is he hasn't really got a car to fuel save off of. Yes, he's getting a distant tow for Adonis. There's no difference about that. But the only other thing can he do, can he get Martin Stattmann somehow ahead of Depesche and hope that Stattmann can get ahead of him, but they both hold track position over Depesche. It's all complicated here, but the understanding is that right now he is having to invest more fuel to keep the pack going at the pace it's going at compared to the cars behind. And that means when we get to the pit stops, you would expect whatever time he spends in the pits, they'll be able to undercut him to the tune of at least 1 or 2 seconds, and therefore he'll fall to the back of this group and indeed may even fall out of the group, which is the worst part. Now here comes Depesche, building up a massive overspeed here, but in lifting off, he definitely kept his guess there. Was he going to go all in? And the answer is no. So Sylvain Depesche right now playing the bigger picture. He wants that second place here today in the elite class. He wants to be on the podium at his home circuit, and what he's doing is very clever. He is just simply holding himself right between the car behind and in front and simply saying to him, look, I'm very happy to be here. If you want to find a way past me, you can try, but my Porsche's got plenty of pace to match these BMWs right now. And well, we'll have to wait and see whether there's going to be a response from Stattmann if he's aware of what the Frenchman's doing, and Jan Lintz as well. And the second place pro driver here, knowing there's Angel Adonis up the road with the GazX Racing JRM car, if he is able to use this pack to fuel save, can he get himself closer to Adonis, who will be in a similar situation to Bortolotti, which is he is by himself, he is not able to save fuel at the front of a group, or indeed by his lonesome as much as the guys behind him, and therefore could we see Lintz potentially undercut him to the tune of a couple of seconds in the pit lane? A lot of intrigue is still to come, as meanwhile, John Chamberlain now finds his progress is held to what will be Miguel Leon's progress, as Leon has found his way past him on the run down towards Indianapolis early on this lap. A rush to the wall there for the American driver, but just about keeps it nice and clean. And well, these drivers definitely now pushing on a little bit. But we've got some more fighting to come, as this is Mikael Eversek in his Porsche, the Inox Motorsport car, chasing after the We Pay 300 machine of Kwangli 2, out of turn number 28. Drivers right now push each other onwards, but we are nowhere near the pit stops at the moment. This is still racing on the road with a strategic twist in it potentially, but understand, everyone's thinking how far can they go before the pit stop, and then after that it really will be a sprint to the finish, which is a little bit odd saying that at Le Mans. Over the course of a 60-minute race, they will need to change the width, they'll need to change the pace from what will be flat out all the way to slow and strategic, and then back to flat out towards that very final lap. And coming across the timeline, well, as they do, we take a look back in time, ladies and gentlemen. There's been a bit of an incident for Chad Henson and Logan Timblake. What exactly has happened? Well, let's find out. So this was Henson and Timblake side by side here coming down the second part of Mulsanne. Henson on the inside, and in the end the two American drivers went into the corner. Timblake came across, Henson held his inside line, and they came together. Well, that's going to be a difficult one there, and I think Henson's going to be of the mind there, which is Timblake turned across him. Meanwhile, Timblake will say, well, he was still there, but I gave him as much room as humanly possible. Well, they both got themselves back together, so great on them for doing so, but I wonder there if they'll be thinking to themselves afterwards, could we have done something a bit differently? Meanwhile, this happened for Chris Susky only moments later. This was coming down into Mulsanne Bend, went on to the brakes right behind, and that was Chris Round, and Round tapping him on the rear. It was more a tap, less of a tap and more of a shunt potentially. I think Round just got it wrong under braking, and then Chris Susky being sent on around, and well, Round could not stop, but you can see what Round did do was slow down as much as humanly possible and tried to wait for him until he couldn't any longer. Susky was trying to get the car back in the right direction. Very difficult to do, of course, because iRacing does have an automated feature whereby if you drive in the wrong direction for too long, you are immediately disqualified from the race and towed to the pit lane because of the risk of driving in the backwards direction. Not that you're planning to drive backwards and cause mayhem, of course, but iRacing can't tell the difference between a car trying to turn itself around after a period of time and you just driving in the wrong direction for a certain period of time. That's the thing with all automated steering systems, where they all have their boundary conditions. But right now, Mikko Abasek still in his boundary condition, which is chasing after the 127 of Pettinger. Well, Kwangli 2, in fact, has found his way ahead. So, what's exactly happened to Matthias Pettinger? He's fallen back even further. Something tells me that he's perhaps picked up a slowdown. In fact, yes, we have confirmation he did do so, coming out of what was at Tetra Rouge corner. And so Pettinger falling backwards, And World 2 chased after Chamberlain now, who's 3.5 seconds up the road. So slowdowns continuing to thwart some drivers. As meanwhile, we do see Brandon White here picking his way on past Robin Aston overall for 24th. And Robin Aston, meanwhile, now has Flavien Thierry right behind him. But well, I could understand if the Frenchman right now is going to be saying to it, what would be Aston, albeit through Morse code, and also under his visor, please just let me go. I need to chase the man in front of you, not you. And in the end, Aston decides not to fight it too hard. And Thierry right now for ID file competition, continuing to progress. Well, next up will, of course, be White, and that'll be Bruno Key, the 4th place driver in the INS class right now, who in turn has Chad Henson in front of him, and Logan Timberlake still holding on to 3rd here in said class. It'll be after his moment of Henson. I think the two have separated a little bit, and I think they've both had a bit of a conversation in terms of who's going to be the quicker driver, and Timberlake still trying to chase down John Ludbrook, and there's a long gap to Kevin Smith by comparison. Of course, Smith right now very far up the road, as is Ludbrook, so is Timberlake just looking at a 3rd place here, or can he find some magic later on? Pinto Sommerlovente, he has taken his pit stop. He took it on lap number 5, and well, he's got that stop out the way nice and early. So he's gone for the undercut, but the privateer right now coming down through the hairpin. I wonder whether the pit lane start was by accident rather than intentional. I would not have thought that if he qualified on pole position, he would have given up that pole position. I wonder if he missed the gridding time because of the fact you only do get 2 minutes at most to make your way onto the grid. Alternatively, in the end, what you may have realised is just that he got the car going, that he put the wrong fuel in and then opted to tow to the pit lane. Well, either way, he's definitely made his work harder for himself. Well, the 10th place runner in the INS class right now. That championship lead he has built, he is now going to lose a lot of it going into what will be Interlagos. If he does finish where he currently sits and his rivals are able to gain that ground, he will find himself going a long way back into their clutches just at the wrong time in the championship when he could be starting, not to seal things up, but definitely make himself comfortable towards the very end of the season. But from the back of the field to the front of it, Mirko Bortolotti still leading. Gap now 9 seconds ahead of this man, of Angel Adonis, your pro leader, 2nd overall. Still doing everything right at the moment and looking untouchable. Renko Jornowski, the 3rd place driver, is starting to pull away a little bit from Sylvain Depeche, but is this a sign of Depeche backing off, or is it Jornowski right now is up in the tempo or somewhere in between? The gaps are still sitting at the best part of what is 6 to 8 tenths. That is not enough to make a breakaway. Jornowski needs to get that gap to 2 seconds if he wants the slipstream to become a non-factor. Indeed, beyond 1 second, it does depreciate, but these GT machines, they have an absolutely brilliant slipstream model whereby as you do get close to the car in front, you genuinely build up an absolutely huge overspeed, and that is because of the fact that the way the aero on these cars is designed, it's not quite the aerodynamics of the GT3 cars that replace them, which is a little bit more gradual in the gain and the tow, but these cars you really do pick up a huge tow. They actually have quite a limited aero package in some respects, very heavily controlled aerodynamic regulations compared to GT3 counterparts. But as Jornowski right now makes his way into the 2nd chicane, well, Depeche is still there waiting, but Stattmann, Linz and Perry all been brought along, and Tim Perry actually catched up as well. And it was a very interesting story at Silverstone for Perry, because whilst we didn't get a chance to talk to him in a post-round interview, unfortunately we didn't have the time to do so, but the Altitude 3M esports driver was saying about the fact there was so much strategy going on between himself and his rivals from GazX Racing Team at Silverstone. And I think we're seeing that again here today. And that's the one thing that I think he's been getting to grips with this Corvette, is just how much strategic variety it provides, given its fuel saving capacity and its time management compared to the other cars. He needs to unlock that, he needs to tap into it, and if he can, he might just be able to get to the head of what is now a 5-car train. And bringing up the next train behind, we can see him there, is Adrian Vlot, the HS Racing 1 driving the 270. The Benjamin Massey and Joris Peters Veem for company. And Veem right now will be very grateful he's hanging on to the back of this group because of the fact he did drop away from it earlier on. He almost lost it, but as we ride on board here on that lovely distant sun right now, which is blinding to the camera every so often as he does clear the tree line. Indeed, you're not currently in a J.J. Abrams movie, ladies and gentlemen. There's no lens flare technology being deployed here, but right now the Dutchman of Peters Veem definitely keeping his eyes on the car in front rather than the sun, and he knows that excluding the pro drive between himself and Block, he's definitely got that 6th place in the elite class in his sights, but he's now just got to see if he can make the strategy work to his favour, or will it be a fight all the way to the end. But leaving them for a brief moment. Meanwhile, there has been a change further down. Here comes Cedric Boyce up the inside of John Ludbrook. And the 2nd place Inter driver opting not to fight this. I think playing the smart game. And number 14 seconds over Logan Timberlake. All he needs to do is sitting behind the Ford GT and he can gain. But he won't do so if he makes a lockup like that into Indianapolis. That's going to cost him a little bit of time. So therefore now he's going to pay the price for that. Meanwhile, up the road we have had some further changes afoot with Ryan Walker. Well, he has got Kevin Smith and John Shamblin close behind him. And in fact, Walker has now cleared Smith and Chamberlain to the point where his chase from Miguel Leon has in fact fallen back a little bit. So I think right now the 5th place pro driver here, I wonder if there's been a bit of a slowdown this lap, because he does seem to have fallen away from the 12th place runner, and Leon has definitely bolted off into distance. We also do have a slowdown now for Adrian Block as well. That would have been from the exit of the Corvette curve, so that's going to cost him a bit of time. He'll be hoping he doesn't lose out versus what will be Massey and Peter Veen when he does burn that penalty. And Jordan Chamberlain picks up the same there, coming out of what was turn at number 26. And so he's going to fall off the back of this group to a degree shortly. Matthias Pettinger will be very grateful for that if he is able to see that Chamberlain is going to burn a slowdown, because he would love to be in that group. We'd love to have somebody to work with to get him closer to it. And Chamberlain right now could be the candidate in order to achieve that as he makes his way onto his 9th tour of the circuit. This race definitely quieting down a little bit at the moment, but don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, we are in that mid-portion phase as well. We are now really waiting for the strategy to play out here and see who exactly has saved the most fuel and who has not, as we do have more slowdowns playing out, as meanwhile, Chad Henson stays out. Logan Timblake, meanwhile, the man who's definitely been one of his rivals on the circuit today, makes his way into the pit lane. So Timblake decides enough's enough. He's going to split his race into 2 parts after serving a slowdown on pit entry. A good time to do it, to be fair to him. And, well, he was running 3rd in the interclass before he pitted. Let's wait and see where this is going to put him back out. Robin Aston, meanwhile, has Brandon White looking up the inside there, coming in towards Dunlop Curve. And as they now head onto the brakes for the chicane, well, Aston holding his ground, but it's going to be White looking left, looking right, and they may be in 2 different classes right now, but my goodness, are they enjoying a good little fight as there Brandon White gets it all wrong coming out the chicane, and by the time they get through turns 5, 6 and in towards 7, that gap opens back up to 7/10 there. So Robin Aston right now absolutely nailing his corner exits compared to the Porsche driver, but of course now there's a long straight coming. If he can't get away at Tetra Rouge, and suddenly all that gap he's built will be for nothing. But a clean run there coming out of Tetra Rouge. Neither driver picks up a slowdown, and therefore it now be even Stevens, with Brandon White having the toe by comparison, and that will bring him back forward. But heading back up to where the strategy plays out, here is Peter Beam, Benjamin Massey and Adrian Block together. And well, Block falling back there after a slowdown penalty, but he's fallen onto the back of this group, so therefore he's not too upset about that. And Peter Beam now finds himself in the familiar position of being in 6th place in the elite class once again. From them, Jornowski and Sylvain Depesche are pushing each other along, or it's more Depesche now pushing Jornowski off into the distance. So a bit of bump drafting now starting to play out here. Depesche's changing tactic. The original tactic was just simply to lift and coast on the straight and not get close to BMW in front. But I wonder now, as we are getting closer to what is the end of 40 minutes of racing, and well, that's important, we'll tell you a little bit why that's important shortly, I wonder if Depesche has decided to change tactics now, which is he needs to work with the BMW in front. He wants to create the gap to Stattmann, Lint and Perry, so that way the guys who've been fuel saving behind him now have a time deficit they've got to deal with, as well as the fact, have they saved as much, if not more or less fuel compared to the Frenchman. Jornowski, meanwhile, if he pushes Jornowski along, he is taking away the ability for Jornowski to fuel save himself, as there we do see Delpeche going a bit wide. He's got to be careful doing that. That'll go to his instant point counter, but Delpeche is definitely trying to get the move on here right now, and Jornowski cannot put the brakes on. He can't, once he's been pushed along, lift off the throttle necessarily, because that would be dangerous, but definitely now they're playing a bit more of an interesting game, and well, who exactly is going to get the game absolutely right? And the reason why the time is so important is because in a traditional race, we do normally see the fuel tanks of these GT machines last the best part of around 30 to 40 minutes. At Silverstone, of course, with what was a race which really was limited in the amount of fuel they used per lap, we did see in the end the leaders, your top 15, go the best part of 45 to 50 minutes before they made that very quick splash and dash. And I think that's what we're going to see with all the fuel saving going on here, is that some drivers, they will try and go so deep into the race in the opening stint in order to be able to buy themselves all the track position they need on the final laps, and also the fact they don't want to risk essentially losing a pack of cars around them, because the slipstream here is worth a couple of seconds a lap on those long straights. Meanwhile, regardless of the slipstream being available or not to him, Mirko Bortolotti goes even faster now, a 46.50, fastest lap of the race. And well, this man right now is taking the inverse logic, which is he doesn't need to save fuel. All he needs to do is create such a gap in the end that nobody will be able to catch him. And well, that definitely has been a bit of the story of the season. On that Silverstone, to be fair, he was only 1 to 2 tenths quicker than his teammates, but he was saving a lot of fuel over the stints, and that's why he was able to go 47 minutes in the race before he did decide to pit. So Bortolotti today taking the all or nothing approach, but it makes sense when he wants to make sure nobody can touch him over the distance. Meanwhile, Julian Eikenau, the Jens Brothers competition driver, who came off not as bad as his teammate with the chaotic starts to the race, well, currently in 10th in the elite class here, 26th overall. He is making his way back up the order in a repaired Ford GT. But right now, can anybody repair his race? The answer is not really, but I can imagine that right now for your German driver here, he's staying in it to win it and just hoping that perhaps some other drivers will have difficulties before this race is said and done. And to be fair, whilst we did have a major incident that affected several drivers, from 41 starters, we do have 37 runners still, which is great to see, including Virgilio Garcia, one of the biggest victims at the start, who's still running there. It might be a lonely race, 12th in the intercars, but he's going to pick up some points, and it's wonderful to see, to be fair. So many drivers still carrying on when all their race has gone a bit wrong, but they're not giving up. They're still going to give it a go, and well, that's the mentality we always want to see. But Andrew Fellows is into the pit lane. He comes on down, being censored by the Michelin Man billboard there, and well, that is not a caricature of the GPX Sport Xenon car, I can promise you that, but he does park up and we get the better camera angle. Well, he stays in, as meanwhile everyone else carries on over, and we see Logan Timblake retaking the place there. He pitted significantly earlier compared to the GPX SimSport driver, and he makes way onwards towards another lap. Timblake back up to 5th. Craig Tillotson has yet to pit, so has Robin Aston. In fact, we can show you who's pitted on our time tower graphic, and therefore you can stay up to date now with who's made pit stops and who has not. And well, you can understand, we see it is the top 25 at the moment who have yet to come into the pits. Nobody wants to entertain the fault, but somebody at some point surely will have to soon. Let's positions there. Brandon White up the inside of Robin Aston. Chris Round now queuing up behind, and Round here would love to get ahead as well, as we ride on board with the 169. The Axis SimSport driver running 12th in the Pro class right now. Definitely it's been a bit of a challenge today. He has yet to take a pit stop, but behind him, Kwang Li 2 and Rene Russler have both pitted, albeit Russler pitting on the opening lap compared to 2, so therefore we believe he's got another pit stop to go. But here we will see Round make his way on past here. This is going to be as straightforward as you'd like, albeit White, they're trying to gift the toe to the Inter driver of Aston to try and help him fight back against Round, but in the end he's not going to fight that as much as Brandon White would hope that he would do so. There's no value in doing it, and Robin Aston in the end playing with his head rather than with brawn and opting just to simply tuck him behind these two pro drivers. Meanwhile, it's getting interesting here. This is 3 wide, and well, these 3 drivers definitely not wanting to play it smart necessarily, although we do see Mikael Aberset there backing off, and so does Matthias Pettinger, and Cedric Boyce is allowed the 2 places off of the Inox Motorsport machines. But the Ford GT driver for the Cube Racing Team here finds himself in a very difficult situation, as meanwhile Pettinger looks up the inside into Indianapolis, takes so much apex curb, and onto the brakes they go. And Sparks flying there from the undertrail of the Corvette, but he's going to make it work. And Matthias Pettinger right now, after that big spin here early on in the race, he is not afraid to attack this circuit. And when the Inox Motorsport driver from Austria right now gets back into 7th place in Pro 16th overall, but is fighting, of course, maybe starting to wear into the tyres a little bit more. And then again, I don't think he's too worried about that as he carries on. Boycia and Aberset following on behind as they get ready for the Porsche curves. And well, here comes your Ford GT now back at the Corvette of Inox Motorsport. Will the Cube Race Machine go for it? Yes, he will. Oh, there's contact between the 2 of them in towards the curves. And as they make their way through, well, they are both right now getting a little bit heated here. And indeed, this is just before the pit stops potentially start to play out. So it does mean that these drivers right now, they want the track position off of each other if they can help it. I think they all suspect that they are equal in fuel, they're equal in strategy. So therefore, it's all going to come down to who has the quickest pit stop and track position before it. As Mikael Aberset, meanwhile, just watches on from behind. I think right now he's probably saying over the radio to his teammate of Matthias, just keep it easy, Matthias. We've got this on the strategies just as much. But into the pits comes Matthias Pettinger. He decides he's done with this. He doesn't want to be embroiled in the fight anymore, and his teammate follows him in. Meanwhile, Cedric Boycia stays on out there, and the Ford GT goes on for another lap. Well, we still do have 21 minutes left on the clock, but right now strategies are starting to split here, and understandably, I think if you've got a teammate around you, you can choose much more flexibly when exactly you're coming in. When you're a solo driver here in terms of where you are out on the circuit compared to your other teammate, well, for Cedric Boyce here, he's just got to get his head down. And will he react at the end of this lap? Will he decide to come in knowing that every lap afterwards, where the 2 drivers he was battling with are in the toe of each other, he will naturally be losing race time? Well, that we'll have to wait and find out. Approximately what will be about 4 minutes time. But back to 3rd place we go overall, and 2nd in what is a lead, and Mirko Bortolotti right now. Still bringing Depeche, Stattmann, Lintz and Perry along for the ride. Adrian Block meanwhile a further 9 seconds back. He's still bringing Joris Peters Veem and Benjamin Massey along with him. He's not been able to quite close up to that group in front, but these drivers right now, understandably, the fuel tanks will be getting lower and lower. They will be starting to look there, and they'll be starting to say fuel low. It'll be a warning on the dashboard, but nobody wants to come in until they absolutely have to, and they're all waiting for the change. But speaking of a change, here it is for the first time in what has been 40 minutes. Sylvain Depeche moves ahead of Renko Jornovsky here, the 281 driver. I think his patience has definitely been playing out as much as possible, but the Cube Racing Team driver now, well, if he's ever going to send a signal to everybody, which is I'm coming in at the end of this lap or very soon, That's the signal he's just sent there as he does the swap, and Jornowski does respond in kind by tucking in. I think Jornowski needs this now. He needs to save some extra fuel in that BMW M8, but Stattmann 1 second back, and Martin Stattmann, I think, is losing these guys. He's trying to lift and coast into the braking zone for what will be Mulsanne, but he's going to have to get a bit of a hurry up here, because if he doesn't, he may just lose them before they come into the pits, and if he loses the toe there, and in the end on fuel, it's Delpeche who's been able to save the most of everybody, then Stattmann might be losing out a treat. That's Angel Ordonez, meanwhile, in front. As we can see there, a little bit of damage to the front of the car there. And I think Ordonez, that might just be where dirt has built up over the front of the car over time. Well, as he makes his way on down towards what will be his next braking zone. Angel Ordonez, this has definitely been a race where he's been by his lonesome. And he's opened up a 2.5 second gap to Delpeche and the Jornowski crew. But I wonder whether he's at risk of being pulled back into that. And if so, there will be a pro driver in that group he'll be doing battle with. It'll be Jan Lintz. So for Angel Ordonez right now, all he's got to do is try to make sure he nails these laps and does not lose any time. And it's all into the lap of the strategy, guys, to see whether he falls into that pack naturally or whether he's done enough to stay one step ahead of it. A quick pit entry and exit as well will do him good. But of course, there's always a risk there of picking up a slowdown penalty or what will be essentially a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Hopefully we don't see that for anyone today. But from them, we come back to Julian Eichenlaub, as he's on the back of the stop at Matthias Pettinger. Eichenlaub, of course, has stopped once already, but that was repair work on the open lap, so he is expecting another pit stop before this race is over. And looking to make his way around the outside there of the pro driver, who's refusing to give way, with Mikael Abasek and Craig Tillotson onto the back of it, and Tillotson has yet to pit as well. So the Ferrari driver right now, after it all went a bit wrong early on, well, he's still here, as Julian Eichenlaub picks up a slowdown penalty there for track limits on the entry into Mulsanne hairpins. Not the way he's wanted that to go whatsoever. And well, he's going to be looking at the inside here of what we Pettinger. I think Pettinger won't be aware of the fact that Ford GT's got a slowdown penalty. And well, I think right now Eichenlaub just trying to stay with them and ahead of them as long as possible as he tucks on him. But meanwhile, into the pit lane, it's all chop and change as Bortolotti's in. So is Ordonez, Jornowski, Lint, and also Perry. But who is not is this man. Sylvain Depesche goes onwards for another lap. And this is the sign of the amount of fuel he has saved. So he's decided to go one extra. And Martin Stattmann there, he's been able to save the fuel as well. And the GazX Racing MCM driver now will need to hurry on this lap. Whatever fuel he's got to use it to get closer to Delpeche. Because if he can't, I wonder if now this is Delpeche's to lose in the battle for second in Elite and what will be third overall. Angel Ordonez coming in. Where's he going to come out? That's the question. And when he pulls out his pit lane, and as he does so, who is going to be behind him? Well, there's Jornowski, but how close is Jornowski to the back of Ordonez? And the answer is, it's the same gap as how they enter the pit lane. It's 2.6 seconds between the two drivers. Nothing has changed. So Jornowski is not going to be able to offset the Enosis Esports Pro leader on strategy. But where exactly will Delpeche and Stattmann fall in status? Tim Perry falls out a bit behind, but he does get ahead of Jan Lintz as a result of strategy. So they've swapped around. Lintz is right there behind Perry right now. And understandably, your second place pro driver, he might be getting a whisper in the ear from the GazX Racing JRM team to say, if you can get ahead of Perry, we would appreciate it. But we'll see what's to happen there, because Jan Lintz will also need to be aware of his own fuel there. Well, as they come on round, more pit stops playing out. John Lebret, Flavien Thierry and Chad Henson are into the pit lane. John Chamberlain, who has already pitted, he's making his way onwards behind Cedric Boissier. So they are fighting for position now with a quarter of the race almost remaining. And Ryan Walker as well is onwards towards what will be fifth place in the pro class, with Kevin Smith just behind him, the interleader, and Handa Yang only 1.5 seconds up the road. So Walker right now, he knows he's within touching distance of full place in pro. And well, with Massey having pitted and Lintz having pitted and Ordonez having pitted, well, after that it would be a sizable gap to Benjamin Massey of 13 seconds. I don't think he's going to have the pace to do that, but he can definitely take a full place here if he can find the time to close down the WePay 300 Porsche in front of him. Kevin Smith, meanwhile, just playing the game of patience behind there, opting not to get involved. He doesn't need to, does Smith. He can just take his time for the remainder of this race. As Craig Tillotson is being searched in the pit lane right now. He's leaving it, and he comes back out in what will be sixth place here. Does he get ahead of Andrew Fellows? Yes, he does. So Tillotson there leaping ahead of Fellows, who's lost out on strategy to Tillotson. The Ferrari driver now back into sixth place, and Pinto Sombolavente is 12 seconds up the road from the pair. So therefore, Tillotson right now 9. He's got to try and hold off this Corvette for the remainder of the distance. From that and what's happening in the pit lane and exiting it, meanwhile, your leader here, Sylvain Depesche, and Martin Stattmann is now 1.6 seconds back. He has lost a bit more time as Stattmann, so Depesche is absolutely hammering it right now. I think he's saved enough fuel to essentially turn this final lap on his opening stint into a qualifying lap, and he's also saved the tyres enough here, and he's able to use that pace to be able to extract more out of them. Heures Peter's Veem as well, we should point out, is also going one extra lap, so he's decided he saved enough fuel there. Credit where it's due to the Dutchman. He's definitely had a race today which has gone under the radar in some respects, and whilst he won't be finishing inside the top 5 in the elite class based on how the strategy is going to play out, he's going to have done very well to finish inside the top 10, and well, it'll be a great effort from him. Having started in 8th in the elite class, I think that's where he's going to finish this one. But looking back to Miguel Leon, meanwhile, he continues his crusade up the order, and well, credit to him, he's now into 10th place here if he does clear Benjamin Massey. He will get ahead of the Pro Corvette driver, and Adrian Block is his next target. Miguel Leon here, this won't be his best result of the season in terms of the points he gets, but is this going to be one of his finest drives of the season? If he can take that 7th off of Block, the answer is yes. This will be incredible. This will be as good in some respects as his battle with Pedro Luis da Silva at Road America for the win. But as he makes his way on down the stretch right now, Vlok is half a second up the road. He's got plenty of time to do it, but he's got to play it patiently because Vlok will know he's coming. But to the leaders then, who come into the pit lane. Here's Sylvain Depech, and there is Martin Stattmann. They both coming in, gap between them 2 seconds at pit lane entry, and Heures Peter's Veem is making his way in as well. Peter's Veem perhaps a little bit less significant in the lead battle for the top 3 spots of the elite class, whereas Mirko Bortolotti here is the man who we expect to go on to retake the lead of the race, and onwards he goes, now to try and chase down that 5th win of the season. But where is Ordonez? Here he is making his way on through the chicanes. We do look to the blimp camera, not the best angle for it to be fair, so we might actually leave the blimp camera alone. It's not ideal. We'll look to a distant camera shot of the Dunlop corner instead. Sylvain Depech is leaving the pit lane. He does so. He comes out in 2nd place. Is Ordonez going to be able to catch up here? I don't think he is. I think Depech has done it. He's jumped Stattmann, and he's also jumped Ordonez. Sylvain Depech has moved up to 2nd now in strategy. What a strategy call there for Cube Racing Team. And right now, whilst he may not have the time to close down Bortolotti, he has just leapt into 2nd place ahead of the pro leader. And it all happened in the pit stops, whereas everyone else has spent the best part of 13 to 14 seconds refueling the car. For Sylvain Depech, 11.5 seconds. So in the end, on that final lap of his stint, he went full qualifying mode, and he still had the ability to underfuel by 2.5 seconds compared to everybody else in order to make sure he's got enough fuel to get to the finish. Now, can he drop what is Ordonez, and can he stop Ordonez bringing Stattmann and Jornowski along? That is now the final test this, because the gaps between these cars are such in a way whereby right now Stattmann and Jornowski, all they've got to do is work together and hope they can get closer to Ordonez, and Ordonez can pull them on towards Depech. If they can do that, and Ordonez does his part in this, then suddenly for Depech, this will be a bit of strategy that hasn't quite worked out as magically as you would imagine it has done so. It is all on tenterhooks. Meanwhile, 3 wide back here right now between Adrian Block on the left, Peter's Veem in the middle, and Miguel Leon on the right. And we can see the Benjamin Massey just watching on watertight as they come onto the brakes, but Block in the end gets ahead, so he's up into 6th in the elite class. So these 3 have all come together on 3 different strategies, and Miguel Leon right now running on behind, but Heures Peter's Veem at this point, well, he's going to be excited at the thought here he might be able to steal away what could be 6th place after an 8th place start in the elite class. He'll want to get this job done. Benjamin Massey here, I think he's just going to be playing the smart call, which is not to get too far involved here, as we do see Leon looking to the inside. These 2, of course, swapping back and forth, and right now this is just positioning for the final lap here, unless anyone can make a break, as Leon dives on the inside there. Vlok just holds the race line. Peter's Veem just waiting, and well, the 251 driver here, he's got to be coming up with some sort of master scheme in order to try and circumvent the pair of them towards the very end. I think being the 3rd man in this right now, you do get ignored a little bit, and that can work out very nicely for you. The only other thought process is, has any driver in this group, indeed up and down the field, have they intentionally underfueled to make sure they come out with a group of cars, and therefore they have to intentionally now fuel save to actually get to the end of the race before they can consider batting? It is a strategy, it's a very risky one, where you intentionally put yourself at risk of running out of fuel, with the idea being if you latch onto another group of cars, you save off of them for a period of time, and you will be safe. Well, we'll have to see, as meanwhile Martin Stattmann gets ahead of Angel Ordonez. The pro leader gives way to the GazX Racing MCM machine. And Stattmann right now 1.5 seconds off of Depech. He's absolutely frying the car at the circuit, Stattmann. He wants to close up to the Frenchman in front. He knows right now that Depech has completely outsmarted everybody here. But can he just grind this gap back down? He needs to get it within a second. If he can do that, he will be within comfortable slipstream distance. Well, we're going to have to see, because as Ordonez follows on, and Jornowski as well. Jan Lintz in the end, it has not worked out for. He's dropped behind Tim Perry. So Lintz is running 7th overall, 2nd of your pro drivers. And Ordonez might be out of to reach this point, but he's still very much safe from Benjamin Massey, as all our pit stops have been completed, ladies and gentlemen, and we do look to those class standings now. As you can see on the left-hand side there, our pro class here continuing to see some exchanges, including John Shambler. Oh no! And that's going to be contact between Shambler and Pettinger, and Pettinger and sliding backwards there in towards the runoff at Indianapolis. And well, was there contact between the two of them? I think the answer is yes, there will have been, and Pettinger with damage to the car. And that's going to be a meatball flag, and therefore it will be a trip to the pit lane at some point. In fact, he's going to park up. The car's finished. And for Matthias Pettinger, this race right now may just be finished just like that. But Sonny, it's all gone wrong for him. As meanwhile, Ryan Walker with a monster run coming through the Porsche curves, and Handy Yang with a slow down as well to serve. He lets it go, but he burns it there at a critical moment. As meanwhile, Kevin Smith, the interleader, just watches on from behind, and Walker moves into fourth place down the pro class. So it's all kicking off once again in pro, just as we're getting towards the closing stage of this race. Walker, can he now break away? Yellow flag for Martin Stattmann, as meanwhile Mirko Bortolotti goes up the inside there of Angel Adonis, coming over the bridge and in towards what will be turns 5 and 6. It's all chopping and changing, but Stattmann with that slow down through was the Dunlop chicane, has released Sylvain Depech to 3 seconds clear. So Depech in the end now, all he's got to do is not make any mistakes at this point, and he's going to be safe from Stattmann, because unless Stattmann can pull a magical set of laps out of a hat at this point, the GazX Racing MCM driver here has no way of getting back towards that Porsche unless he can just outpace it. But that is nowhere near easy when they've been exchanging lap times as if it's been going out of style. So these drivers right now, this might be it. And for Stattmann, it's going to be Stattmann and Jordanowski fighting over the final spot on the elite podium and overall, with Angel Adonis there watching this right now. And I wonder if he'll feel as though he wants to be on the overall podium instead of them. But of course, that'll be a gamble, and actually will not want to fight too hard in case it brings Perry and, more importantly, Jan Lint into that group. Back to Vlok versus Petersveen versus Leon, and well, Miguel Leon has pulled away a little bit, so he's opened up a bit of a breather. And Vlok versus Petersveen right now, as we do see the Dutchman still trying to look for the move. Leon, I think, has got his head down and got the pace together. And Vlok in the end's going to go a bit deep there, but he just about keeps him in track limit. Well, Petersveen right now, knowing that the Ford GT is losing time. It's hemorrhaging time to Inosis Esports Corvette, and something needs to be done to get them back together. But we'll see what happens there. As meanwhile, we go back in time and take a look at what exactly happened to Matthias Pettinger. So this was Matthias Pettinger at the time, battling side by side with John Shambler. There's a bit of elbows out there in towards Indianapolis, and in the end, under braking, it was a tiny tap there. The two of them got so close to each other, battling for position, and well, in the end, just a small tap from the front right to the rear left of Pettinger's car is what sent him all the way around. But this was the on-board with John Shambler, and this was the turn battling down. So initially, side by side into braking, but Pettinger's going to go around the outside. Brilliant gamble here, and then Shambler just cutting to the inside there, and just the smallest of touches of such a high-speed braking zone. Well, when you're going to make contact there, you are literally at the mercy of, you've got the brakes on and hope you don't make contact, and so unfortunate between the two of them. But understandably, Pettinger right now is not going to be too pleased, as that has sent his race all the way to the pit lane. But as we do see Kitty's Mad there saying, some great driving from the Verano lads. Indeed, Kevin Smith, he's been trying a very good run at the front of the interfield. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about Craig Tillotson here, who right now in a bit of a lonely 7th place in the interclass. As well, it's gone very wrong now. It's Rene Rosler going on around after, I think, almost getting caught in the back of Andrew Fellows. But suddenly Craig Tillotson will gain another overall place. And he'll breathe a sigh of relief there that he hasn't been caught up in what's happened in front of him. But he's enjoying a very solid run. And right now, only 1.5 seconds off the back of Andrew Fellows. He is catching Fellows little by little. And in that draft right now, if he can maintain this pace, he could be on course for a 6th place fight right at the end of this, with 6.5 minutes left on the clock. Back to Brandon White we go. He's battling with Chris Round still. These two have been absolutely inseparable. And well, as we do see behind them, Robert Aston getting into the queue, and also Levente getting closer. Well, right now, White and Round want to fight over the final spoils of their class. We're in towards the braking zone. It's White who's still ahead at the moment, at least. But Chris Round, I think, watching on as White goes very deep there, and as he gets it back together, hold up a second. Who exactly was that going slidewise? Was that Soma Levente? Yes, it was. And the number 91 driver, they're going so drifting deep to the point, I think, just locking at the brakes. And well, this race is going from good to mad to worse, and that a circuit that he absolutely loved. Well, I can tell you one thing right now, for your number 91 driver, Le Mans, is showing him no love back. And I think right now this has been perhaps the most frustrating round of racing we've seen from him all season. And definitely after this one, he's going to be wanting the weekend to come sooner rather than later. But what exactly happened to a few of our drivers there, including what's been an incident for Mirko Bortolotti? That's not, we haven't called out on camera. He's dropped all the way down to 7th place. Here's a replay, ladies and gentlemen. So this was Jornowski battling with Martin Stattmann at the time, coming in towards what was Indianapolis corner. Stattmann on the outside to inside, and in the end, a bit of contact between the two of them. Both drivers going off there, and well, the GazX Racing teammates making contact. Jornowski going on around. Meanwhile, Stattmann was able to just about keep it together. But my goodness, what a nasty moment. And can we see it from an alternative camera angle, perhaps, as to what exactly went wrong? So it was an odd one. So side by side they went in. We've seen that from the other camera. Jornowski defending hard on the inside. Stattmann carrying the speed round. And there was the contact. And that upset Jornowski's car and Stattmann as well. So both of them making door-to-door contact. The cars getting hooked on each other in a way. And in the end, both teammates there, knowing they perhaps could have done better in reality, but fighting hard. And at low speeds into Indianapolis, it only takes one small mistake, like what we saw only months ago for Chamberlain versus Pettinger. And suddenly you can both end up in the wall. But thankfully not that, just both off the road. We then had this for Rene Rissler only months later. GazX really having a bit of a miserable end to the race in some respects. And well, the GazX Racing JRM driver on the back of Andrew Fellows there got too close, thinking that he'll be able to carry more speed into the braking zone there compared to the Inter driver, and being surprised by it, and then to put the brakes back on. And at that point, that's when he locked up and went for the spin off of the rear axle. So that explains his story, and then getting himself back together. And then we did have this for Pinto Sommerlevente, his BMW having it go wrong. Indeed, these replays right now showing it going wrong for all BMW machines, as he broke his way down to Mulsanne, went in with a lot of speed, carried way too much speed, and in the end very quickly found himself into the gravel, which thankfully completely stopped the car. But back to your live racing we come. And so as we do, ladies and gentlemen, well, still 4 minutes left, and all the drivers right now, exhaustion is definitely going to be kicking in. Stamina is now going to be at a premium, but for our leaders of our classes, including Mirko Bortolotti here, elite and overall, he's definitely looking to be absolutely fine. As meanwhile, Angel O'Donnell, your third place runner, trying to chase down Sylvain Depeche. Well, he's been able to move back into third with Stattmann's incident with Jornowski. And he knows the C-Sports driver right now, not just on course for a win and a return to winning ways in the pro class, but also a return to a chance for an overall podium, and one he will seize. Meanwhile, in Inter, Kevin Smith in a very lonely inter-lead race since the very start of it, but right now the number 94 driver won't be complaining about this because it all went wrong at Silverstone in what was a chance to take a win. But right now he's definitely taking the chance here today, and well, he's not going to look back and regret this one. Instead, it's all come up absolutely good. But other drivers to think about in the inter-class, we haven't really talked about them, given the fact they've gone under the radar a bit. John Ludbrook, currently second of your Inters. He's enjoyed a very lonely race as well. 19th overall, but he hasn't really put a foot wrong, and he's been absolutely delivering it. But meanwhile, we do look to Bruno Key, and he's going to be on course for another podium in the Inter class. And the WePay 300 eSports driver right now, he just has this habit of doing it every time. Today, starting from 6th in the class, and he's just found his way into third, and much like at Silverstone, not making mistakes, whereas everybody else has. But from singing praises for our Inter drivers, we come to Ryan Walker, who's going a bit slowly there, coming out of Arnage Bend. And Yang falling a bit further back meanwhile. So the fight between these two for fourth place in pro is not quite over yet. Yang seems to have the pace, but he's also picking up the slowdowns, whereas Ryan Walker right now is trying to cling on in terms of pace. From then we come up to Adrian Block, who's still got Joris Petersveen close behind him. And well, as they make the way out of what will be the Corvette curves, Petersveen close, but not quite close enough. As your race leader, as he goes past my commentary booth window, has made his way onto the final lap. We will get a 16th and final tour of the circuit here at Le Mans today, within the hour. But right now, Adrian Block here, knowing that he's got to hold on for one more lap with a very hungry Porsche behind him. And when was the last time we saw Petersveen enjoy a race where it didn't go wrong in the early stages or have some sort of incident in it? It's been a bit of time, but right now he's definitely enjoying this race so far, and he's definitely thinking about that final move at the very end here. But the gap, 8 tenths at the moment, and it does seem as though in the low speed corners is where Vlok has got the advantage in that Ford GT, and Petersveen, if anything, has got everything going for him on the straights by comparison with the slipstream. As there's been a bit of a twist, ladies and gentlemen, CJ Boycia crawling into the pit lane, and as he makes way in, well, that car's run out of fuel, I think, and right now he's just got to come on in and quickly go for a splash and dash. So suddenly the Cube Racing team, well, for one of the French machines here, it's gone wrong on home soil, and that's going to drop him a long way down the order. It will promote what will be John Chamberlain up into 6th place, header Mikael Eversek in the pro class, and Kwon Lee Tew is also going to be moving up as well. So suddenly it's all gone backwards to CJ Boyce. A quick splash and dash, 5 seconds stationary. They put the fuel in, and I don't think they banked on the idea that they were going to get a 16th lap in. And meanwhile, we've got a trio of yellow flags here. for Brandon White, for Chris Round and Julian Eichenlaub. So they're all right now picking up slowdowns here, going on to the final lap. They'll have to burn them pretty quickly, as otherwise they'll be very quickly converting those into what will be none other than stop-and-go penalties. And nobody wants that before the final lap, because they won't be able to serve it, and it will be added time at the end of the race to a tantamount portion of what will be at least a minute, and that will be absolutely race-ruining when they get to the results. But as they all serve those slowdowns in good time, White and Round still fighting over 11th place in the Pro Class here. So these drivers have been absolutely glued together for some time. Well, they've got one more tour on the circuit to try and decide who's going to be the quicker one of these drivers to become best of the rest in the Pro Class. We'll have to wait and see as Round right now, well, for as long as he's been behind White, I don't think he's been able to actually find a way in at any point, and that's been the real struggle here, is that the fact that he's got all this pace to stay close, but I wonder if the slipstream has been helping him in that endeavour as we ride on board with Chris Round. And well, here he goes, building up the speed. Behind him, Julian Eichenlaub, 8 tenths behind, not really close enough to get involved at the moment, and I think Eichenlaub is actually going to save some fuel behind in order to make sure he gets to the end of the race. I think a few cars might be struggling with regards to fuel, and surely we're not going to see anybody splutter before they get to the end of the finish line. We'll catch that's Bruno Key, who has served a slowdown only moments to go, quite a long one, so there goes White up the inside of the third place into driver, almost overcooks the braking zone, and now Round will try and do the same here. We'll try and benefit from the straight line speed of that BMW to be able to get a double draft here, and well, that's going to give him a huge injection of speed as he makes his way down towards the second Mulsanne chicane. But from them, it comes to Adrian Vlok versus Peter Zweem. Vlok still ahead as they come through in towards Indianapolis corner. No change between them. But from them, ladies and gentlemen, well, we come up to your pro leader of Angel Ordonez. He's still in control as the clock strikes 0. And right now, only 2 seconds behind Sylvain Depesche, the second place man in the elite and overall categorization. And Depesche right now on course will be an absolutely brilliant result. But meanwhile, here is your race leader. And well, what a race it's been for him today. In qualifying, he wasn't quite on pole position, it was second, but he took the lead early on, and then much like in previous rounds, he's never looked back, because for Mirko Bortolotti in the GazX Racing MCM Ferrari, he will take victory here at Le Mans today by 19 seconds over the rest of the field. But it is going to be a home hero who comes home in second place. It is going to be his best result of the season for Sylvain Depesche. Did he have the pace to win the race? No. Did he have the smarts to win it? Yes, and that win in the end will come in the form of a second place in the elite class and overall, and he got the job done in the pit lane for GTE Racing Team ahead of Angel Ordonez, who takes the pro win for Enosis Esports and returns to the top step of the podium. Martin Stattmann will take fourth, third in elite, head of Tim Perry, and there will be Jan Lint, who comes home runner-up in pro with a solid drive, head of Marinko Jornowski. But meanwhile, we've got more cars to come, as we do see Joris Petersveen in the end does get the upper hand on Adrian Vlok right at the end. They've changed places. We'll get a replay of that if we can. Benjamin Massey will come home for the third and final spot on the pro podium in 11th place. Well done to him for a solid drive just ahead of Ryan Walker and Handa Yang, and well, it'll be a best result of the season for Ryan Walker, and for Handa Yang it's a debut to be remembered. 5th place in class, and then for Kevin Smith, ladies and gentlemen, your Inter winner. He's been in a class of his own today for Verano Academy, and he makes it another win of the season, his second, and right now continuing forward as Jordan Shamlin will come through shortly for 6th in pro class. 9th today, it's had its ups, it's had its downs, but he ends on an up, head of Mikhail Avasek and Kwon Lee Tu, and well, from them it will then be none other than John LeBrook who comes out the final quarter to take the runner-up spot there in the interclass for GPX SimSport Xenon, returning to the podium once again, and a big result in his championship campaign to level the scores to Pinto Somo Levente. Flavien Tieffry will just finish ahead of Chad Henson as they come through to round off the top 20, with it being Cedric Boycia coming home in 10th after the last gasp dash to the pits for fuel. Very unfortunate there when he was on course for a comfortable finish in 6th place in the pro class. And then Chris Round still got some distance to do, as here comes Bruno Key, but right behind him is going to be Pinto Somo Levente, who's getting very close on the last couple of quarters, but Bruno Key will round off the interpodium there just ahead of the championship leader, who in the end have started from the very back of the field and will bring it on home after a pit lane start in 4th place and Inter. What a drive from him, to give him credit. And then we'll see Rene Rossler coming on through in 25th place, just ahead of Andrew Fellows, who rounds off the Inter top 5 there with some more points. And it'll be Craig Tillerson, 6th place in class, almost matching his season best there for Verano Academy, and a very good drive from him. Logan Timberlake will come through in 7th, another race where all started strong, but it gradually went slightly wrong. And then we'll see Robin Aston coming through on his debut, 29th overall and 8th in the interclass. He'll be pleased with that. And then we will see Julian Eichenlaub. He's still struggling onwards, but to be fair to him, he is going to get to the finish eventually. potentially, even if he's missing the whole front of that Ford GT. I'm not quite sure where he's left it, ladies and gentlemen. That might be some souvenirs out there if anyone's willing to walk the track later, as we do see Brian Beardsworth playing catch-up as well. I think Beardsworth may overtake him right at the end here, although the priority is going to take it easy. I think they're both right now exhausted, these drivers, and Iconalv steps aside there. So Brian Beardsworth will gain 30th place right for the last couple of corners, and 9th place in the end in the Interclass. It hasn't been the strongest of days for the 88 driver from the United Kingdom, but still, he will see the finish. Julian Iconalv has run out of fuel, in fact, as he tries to get the car going. Well, is there anybody else out there to push him to the finish? We do have Brandon White. Now, for Brandon White, it will be 13th place, as he's been involved in some sort of incident. So it's gone wrong for White on the final lap, and I wonder if there's been a bit of contact between himself and Iconalv. We will try to understand shortly, because they've had a coming together, or someone's had a bit of a moment, and it's both of them. But as he makes way onwards, will Iconalv get to the finish line? He hasn't got the fuel to do it. Can Brandon White here set aside whatever differences they've had earlier in the race, and will they push each other to the finish? Well, we're going to find out very shortly, as we do see him make his way along. And, well, will he leave the stricken Ford GT driver? The answer is no. He gives him a bit of a knock on the back and says hello. And in the end, well, they are going to make it through together. Where's sportsmanship, ladies and gentlemen? Come on, guys, you can do it. Give it a bit of a push. Brandon White is spinning up the rear wheels using what fuel he's got, but the car's not pointing straight. Neither car is pointing straight here. Come on, it's only 50 metres or so, and I don't think Iconalv's car can go straight. Unfortunately, he's going to be left behind, and Brandon White in the end will finish the race in 31st, as Julian Iconalv, with that contact, has also picked up a black flag. Well, that's absolutely gutting, but they tried their best, ladies and gentlemen, to give them credit where it's due. And Brandon White will take 31st, and Iconalv will be demoted to 32nd as a result of having to tow to the pits right at the end there. But what exactly happened to them? Here's a replay to explain. I think this does fill in the gaps that we're missing. In fact, it doesn't, because Iconalv's car already heavily damaged. The same there for what was Brandon White. My good lord, what exactly happened to them? Can we go back a bit earlier? Yes, we can. So it was down the second part of Mulsanne, and as they made the way onwards, well, we also did see, oh my good lord, and in the end, whose car was that caught up there? Was that Bruno Key's car caught up there? I think it might have been, and that explains also that's why Key lost so much time towards the end of the race. And then on the contact there with White and Julian Iconalv at the back of that group just being collected as well. You couldn't make that up, and that explains why Pinto Sommerlevente suddenly was hunting down the podium on the final lap. Well, completely unexpected. What did that look like from on board Bruno Key's car here, you ask? Well, here we go. Let's listen in. And winning, he wanted to give a bump draft there towards Brandon White, but that contact to him immediately upset the rear of that Porsche and just sent it around. So that's the gap we were missing right at the end. That explains that story. And well, ladies and gentlemen, we head back to your live pictures where everyone has called on down, and that means it's time for some race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And after 60 minutes of racing it in round number 7 of the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 1, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform known only as iRacing, and here today from the Le Mans circuit in France, Mirko Bortolotti makes it 5 wins in 5 appearances for GazX Racing MCM, but he was not joined on the podium by his teammates today. Instead, Sylvain Depech made it 2nd place overall for GTE Racing Team with an absolutely brilliant driving strategy, and Angel Adonis, your pro winner, rounds off the podium there in 3rd place for Notice Esports. When it went wrong for the GazX Racing pair, Martin Stattmann and Mirko Bortolotti, he was the one to make sure he picked up the pieces. Martin Stattmann in the end had to settle for 4th. It's 3rd in the elite class, but not the overall podium for the GazX Racing MCM driver. Just ahead of Tim Perry there, who was never too far behind for Altitude 3M Esports. Jan Lintz ran up in the pro class, drove a very solid race, but on strategy today, he could not match Adonis. And the GazX Racing JRM driver, in the end, he'll be happy with that 2nd place, knowing he's moving forward, and Adonis is moving forward with him. Mirko Bortolotti in after the contact with Stattmann, having to settle for 7th. They'll be talking about that one after the race. And, well, from the GazX Racing JRM driver, it was then 2 seconds to Miguel Leon for Notice Esports, who did incredibly well to recover his way all the way to 8th. Joris Petersveen was able to outrun Adrian Vlock in the end, with the 2 around off the top 10. The priority ahead of the HGS Racing 1 driver, and it was best of the rest for Benjamin Massey in 11th there, who completed your pro podium for Inox Motorsport. Ryan Walker just missed out on the podium by 8 seconds in pro, but a 12th place overall, his best result of the season and 4th in class. He won't be too upset about that for Altitude 3M Esports, ahead of race-long rival Handa Yang there for We Pay 300 Esports, who rounded off your top 5 of the pros. And then Kevin Smith, your inter-class winner today. Well, after Pinto Sommerlevente started from the pit lane, from that pole position, it was inherited by Smith, and he did not waste it, to be fair. And the Verano Academy driver drove the race absolutely perfectly, knowing he didn't need to fight anybody, he just needed to stay safe. John Shamblin finished just behind him to the tune of 11 seconds of Dynasty Motorsports ahead of Mikael Eversek. And then it was Kwang Li 2 on his debut in 17th ahead of John Ludbrook, your run-up in the Interclass, with the GPX SimSport Zenon driver in the end also having a race under the radar but not making mistakes. Flavin Thierry and Chad Henson round off the top 20 with a good fight between them in the closing stages. And outside the top 20 in 21st, it was Cedric Boissy with a last-minute splash and dash, completely subverting what was a solid performance from the Frenchman. And well, Chris Round was just behind him, with a further 3 seconds to Bruno Key, who with a damaged car was able to hold on to the final spot on the Inter podium for We Pay 300 Esports, and Pinto Sombolavente, after starting from the pit lane, finished right behind him in 24th, fourth in the Interclass. Rene Rosler took 25th after misfortune at the start, but did well to recover to a degree, ahead of Andrew Fellows, with Craig Tillerson there just missing out on the top 5 of the Inters, but 6th place in class, 27th overall for Rhino Academy. Then we did have Logan Timberlake, Robin Aston and Brian Beardsworth completing your top 30. Outside the top 30, let's not forget about them. Brandon White finished what was the last of your lead lap finishers there, trying to push Julian Eichenlaub across the line, but it didn't quite work out, and in the end Eichenlaub had to settle for towing to the pits and will be 32nd. It was also a lap down for Chris Keenan, as it was for Virgilio Garcia, and it was 3 laps down for Matthias Pettinger with that late instance seeing him retire from the race, and we did see retirements as well for Justin Noel and Chris Susky, and much earlier retirements for Christian Ablasser, James Bostock, Albert Prish, and also none other than Callum Lux, who retired before he even got 10 metres beyond the start-finish line. So a very unfortunate race for him. But with that, ladies and gents, we come on to the elite class then. And of course, with all the classes, this is where the points are made and lost. And in elite, Mirko Bortolotti taking the maximum points here when absolutely dominant drive in the Ferrari 488 ahead of Sylvain Depeche. The GazX Racing MTM driver in the end being joined by his teammate Martin Stattmann, who finished third behind the Cube Racing Team driver. But the Austrian driver 9 today, that unfortunately, strategy didn't work out, and in the end, a bit of an altercation with a teammate is not how you wanted it to go. Tim Perry missing out on the podium, but fourth once again, keeping himself well in the hunt of the championship for Altitude 3M Esports ahead of Marinko Jornovsky. With then Miguel Leon just missing out on the top 5 there, but still delivering a solid race. And behind the Palestinian driver, it was Joris Petersveen in 7th ahead of Adrian Vlot there for HTS Racing 1. It was a whole minute behind to Chad Henson for Los Dos Privado, who enjoyed a lot of battling with Inter and Pro drives today. And it was a lap down for Julian Eichenlaub, had it all go wrong right at the start, and it all went wrong right at the end as well. And then we did see the retirements for Justin Noel, Christian Ablasser, Albert Prish, and Callum Lux. Then to the Pro class. And what we saw in the second of our classes was that Angel Ordonez was the man to beat today, and nobody could quite beat him for Enosis Esports, even if Jan Lintz was kept within touching distance. But in the end, the GazX Racing JRM driver had no answer to the pace of the Spaniard. But in turn, the German driver had no threat for Inox Motorsports' Benjamin Massey, who had to work hard to consolidate that third place, and did so admirably ahead of Ryan Walker, the Altitude 3M Esports driver, earning that fourth place, where others lost their places, and indeed, Hunter Young and then picked up a slowdown or two, where it was the Scotsman able to hold off the Chinese driver to the line. Young in the end took 5th place for We Pay 300 Esports, who on his debut, picking up a good haul of points. He'll be pleased with that, ahead of John Shamblin, with the Disney Motorsports driver a further, what was 17 seconds behind. And it was Mikael Eversek in 7th place, ahead of Kwang Li 2, with Flavin Thierry and Cedric Boissier completing the top 10. Behind the misfortunate Cube Racing Team driver, it was then Chris Round, who was able in the end to beat Brandon White in their race-long battle, with Rene Rosler taking 12th place there, ahead of White. And then we did see 3 laps down and classified as a finisher, Matthias Pettinger there for Inox Motorsport. Then lastly, in the Interclass, the story was one led by Kevin Smith. He wrote the story from start to finish for Rhino Academy after the main author, who was expected, started in the pit lane. That was Pinto Sombolavente. The Rhino Academy driver was never going to let that opportunity go to waste. John Ludbrook took 2nd place, best of the rest in the end for GPX SimSport Zenon, ahead of Bruno Key, who rounded off that podium for We Pay 300 Esports. And again, both Ludbrook and Key delivering silent but effective races. Pinto Sombolavente recovered well to 4th in the end, and known his championship lead hasn't been as slashed as much as he thought it would have been, but still, it's not the way he wanted it to go. And then Andrew Fellows completed the top 5 there for GPX SimSport Zenon. 9 that today, it was all about a top 5 finish, and he just about scraped it. Craig Tillerson just missed out on the top 5, but took 6th ahead of Logan Timberlake. And then Robin Aston, Brian Beardsworth, and Chris Keenan completed the top 10, with the MRC drive being a lap down, as was Virgilio Garcia, best of the rest in 11th, the privateer. And then it was non-finishes for Chris Susky with a late instant for China Shot Racing, and a much earlier time from the race for James Bostock for GPX SimSport Onyx. So with that, ladies and gents, and that's a rundown of the results. Of course, I suspect there will be some stewarding investigations after the racing today. There always are, to be fair. But with that, as Le Mans falls silent, our broadcast is going to fall silent for the best part of 5 minutes. But when we come back, we'll come back to the tune of some post-round interviews for our drivers. Don't go anywhere. You won't miss them. We will see you again very shortly. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Stattmann gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately go on the attack into the braking zone. One drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there in 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Fords, for the Ford and the Corvette, the 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, you know, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, sorry, up high. He decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. It is, but look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Stattmann side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure and Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bank. Look back for the rear of your second place runner of Stattmann, and Stattmann right now for the GazX Racing Team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here. Although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back, but here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Stattmann falling down to 3rd, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only 1 car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being 2 wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets involved. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be 2 wide with him, but 2 wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes to the switchback there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it's time for us to kick off our post-round interviews, and what better way to do so than start off in the elite class, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Tim Perry from Altitude 3M Esports. Good evening to you, Tim, and we may have missed you last time out at Silverstone, but we've caught you today, and what a day it's been for yourself. 5th place overall, 4th in the elite class, and looks like you've had quite a solid race.
It may have looked like that, but it didn't feel like that at the time. I have to say, it felt quite stressful and, yeah, kind of a lot of to-in and throw-in and mistakes and all sorts. So, yeah, I wouldn't have called it that, to be honest.
Oh, fair play. Well, a bit of a frustrating one then. I mean, Le Mans can always bring out, of course, some of the biggest challenges in a driver. If we start off with qualifying, 7th overall, 6th in class. How was qualifying for you?
It was interesting, actually. I ended up working with Callum Lux and Julian. We kind of like realised that we would need multiple cars for
qualifying, really needed like at least 2 cars to draft. So we kind of did a little team up there to try and get ourselves further up. And it's always difficult then because you're limiting the amount of laps you can do. So, each of us had like two fine laps basically, and I think off tracked one, so I had to play a bit safer on the second one. So, but it was good working with those guys. Definitely helped to move me up the order, probably a few places higher than I would have been.
I see. So strategy in terms of slipstream, really making things work out in qualifying. Then we go racing, of course. Start of the race, a bit of chaos unfolded before we even got really going. Where were you in all of that?
Yes, I was just behind Callum, and it looked like a hardware failure where he just turned left. But I did talk to him afterwards, and he said that basically just lit the rears up as he tried to accelerate and turn left at the same time. So he's obviously very sorry for that. But I ended up getting obviously a great run from that, and then going into turn 1, I kind of accidentally kind of sent it on Miguel Leon. I just went for the brakes, and obviously they're really cold, and just ended up, rather than hitting the back of him, I kind of had to go inside him, and then it ended up being a brilliant move, and I ended up kind of getting past him, and then he kind of just drifted into me, and that's why he spun. I don't think it was on me at all, but it ended up like being an accidental great move.
Oh, indeed. It was a very intriguing moment there. And like you say, I don't think personally anything was on you. I think the two of you just happened to come in together at probably the most awkward time possible. But you survived that, and then a race gets underway. And at that point, after the first couple of laps, we really see the tempo start to slow down more into a bit of a strategic space. Although by the sounds of things, at that point, that's when the frustration started coming and the mistakes with it.
Yeah, so I ended up in a great position. I think Jordanowski had a slowdown, so I ended up getting past him. So I was kind of third overall, sitting behind Ango. So that's kind of ideal place really. So I was really happy with that. And then going into obviously turn 2, got a slowdown myself, and I just could not get rid of it. I had a bit of a space behind, so I was kind of lifting through Tetra Rouge. It just kept going up and up and up, go all the way down the straight. And obviously on the first lap, they tend to be harsher because they don't have that reference lap, and so it just kept going up. I just had to lift, and then it got to about 1 second, and I almost had to brake on the straight to clear it. So I ended up losing about 6-7 positions, which was not ideal.
Oh, a very frustrating moment there, but I completely understand your frustration. And then from that point onwards, we did see you constantly dicing in a way with trying to stay with the lead group, exclusion of breakaway top 2. But it looks like you were always playing catch-up from that point onwards, even on fuel, perhaps.
Well, yeah, I mean, the only thing was I did have the pace, but in kind of weird areas. So I was really fast through Porsche curbs and kind of the penultimate chicane, but like I wasn't very fast on the straight, so it was then hard to catch up in the toe. So even if I was like a second behind, they basically started to pull away from me, even though I was in draft. I'm running 0 wing, so I have no idea what was happening there. But and then every time I caught right up to them, I would then have another slowdown, have to back off about 2 seconds, then it'd take me another lap to catch them back up again. So it meant I wasn't able to save as much fuel, but I was very close to the extra lap. I probably could have actually done it, but I just didn't want to risk it really. But so it was annoying because the pace was there, but it was hard to catch them in the right areas, and obviously every time I did catch them, I didn't got a slowdown. So it was very frustrating.
Oh, understandable your frustration there. In the end, things not quite clicking together the way you'd want them to, particularly, like you say, with regards to where you were stronger and weaker compared to your rivals. But still, you kept it together. And in the closing stages, we did see you gradually move a little bit further forward and aided somewhat by the GazX Racing Team pair of Stattmann and Jordanowski having a bit of an altercation just in front of you.
Yeah, it was so funny as well because I was looking at it thinking like, oh, well, maybe they'll work together, catch Sylvain, but Sylvain was really quick, so I was like, oh, maybe not. I was like, well, there's no chance anything will happen between those two because they'll just work together. And then about 10 seconds later, they obviously had their crash, and I was like, oh, okay, I was wrong about that then. And then obviously I was behind Stattmann after that, and I think the penultimate lap I did a really good lap and closed right in on him. And then, so I was thinking I'm going to put some pressure on here. But he drove an amazing last lap. I think it was both of our fastest laps of the race. He really absolutely nailed it. But at least I was there in case he made no mistake or got a slowdown. But yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't to be today.
Well, it wasn't to be your day, unfortunately, like you say, even if you did have the pace towards the end to chase down Stattmann and he was able to respond, but it's a 4th place in class, 5th overall, so some valuable points. It still keeps you well in the hunt for what is a top 3 in the championship, if not the lead. 3 rounds to go. Next up, it's an endurance race at Interlagos. What's the plan there?
So, I mean, this is probably my best chance against the Ferraris and BMWs. I think Interlagos, it's a 90-minute race and it's going to be hot. And it is a circuit that will wear tyres a lot. So I think if the Corvette is going to be really good anywhere, it's going to be here, Interlagos. Obviously, Mirko will be too quick and miles ahead, but compared to everyone else, I think it is a decent shot. So I'd say that's probably my best shot for a podium for the rest of the season. But yeah, we will see how things pan out. It doesn't always work like that.
Oh, indeed. You never know what can happen until you get there and on the grid and go racing. But still, we look forward to seeing whether you can take that chance next time out in Brazil. But Tim, just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Yeah, obviously just all the Outrage team for making it all possible. And yeah, thanks to Callum and Julian for helping in qualifying. And obviously yourself and SRI for putting on a great product.
Oh, thank you, Tim. And likewise, a huge thank you to you for joining me for an interview this evening. Sorry to hear it's been a bit of a challenging day today, but to be fair, you've scored some big points, and we look forward to seeing you in Brazil next week to see if you can get back on the podium. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from a somewhat frustrated and befuddled Tim Perry, you don't normally hear him like that. So he's definitely had one of those days today where things have not quite gone right. And really talking out there, firstly, in qualifying, discovering that you needed the total of multiple cars to have a chance of taking what could be pole position or a high spot on the grid and being able to find a couple of drives to work with, not necessarily in his team. After that, in the race, talking about what happened at the start, and in the end, it did sound as though that it was a self-inflicted error from Callum Lux, just getting the wheels too heavily spun up at the start. It happens to even the very best, and with Tim Perry right behind to see that happen, was able to steer clear of it. And then, in the early stages, through the Dunlop chicane, talking about the contact between himself and what was Miguel Leon, and in the end, one of those coincidental contacts where I think, on reflection, both drivers will look at it and shrug their shoulders and go, probably a very strange one that, but Tim Perry benefited from it. Then after that, it was the frustrations, of course. Mentioned there about the fact that he had the pace at the wrong points on the lap to be able to stay with the guys in front, and in the end always seemed to be downhill of them in terms of where he needs the pace. But aided somewhat by a calamity for the GazX Racing Team drivers Stattmann and John Oski, he was in the end able to bring home that 5th place overall and 4th in class, but he knows next week his best chance for a podium is at Interlagos, and he'll be able to take the fight to the GazX Racing Team there, but we look forward to seeing him try and seeing whether he can make it happen. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got plenty more interviews to come, and well, we take a step back for a brief moment. We'll be back very shortly for interview number 2. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's to our second interview we come, and we come to the man none other than Mikhail Abasek, as he joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Mikhail, and well, what a challenging day it's been today for so many, yourself included, for Inox Motorsport, starting 23rd overall, 10th in class, and in the end finishing 7th. Some solid points. How was it for you?
The race was good for me. I'm quite satisfied. Did like the best quality time ever in GTE right before the race. Yeah, in the start it was a bare survival. I was just trying to catch the hole through which I can go. But after that, yeah, I mean, smooth as expected. But later, maybe because of unfortunate accidents with Matthias, I tried to co-work with him to gain some more places, but unfortunately in the end didn't go as planned. But yeah, overall, okay.
So, went okay in the end, and just talking a little bit about Le Mans, of course, we did see yourself and your teammates trying to work together as much as possible. Just for the viewers at home, how much time was it worth in qualifying if you picked up just the toe of one of your teammates, let alone 2 of them?
Yeah, it was a very good tow for Benjamin. He gained a lot. I mean, he was, I think, amongst top 3 or 4, 5, I don't know, in the class. But yeah, I mean, At least I would say a second more again than usual solo lap. So yeah.
Well, a whole second being gained there. And when we did go racing, of course, there was the big incident at the front of the field, which you might have been able to avoid coming out of the final corners to start the race. But there were also some incidents a little bit later on the opening couple laps. I mean, what were the opening couple laps like for you?
I mean, I told myself, okay, let's do first 2-3 laps without incidents. Let's try to avoid some crashes if they happen. It was just better survival for me. But yeah, I managed to avoid all, luckily for me. I had some bumps and kicks from other drivers, mainly from behind, but yeah, I managed to stay on the track. In the end, there was a little incident with the Inter driver. I tried to pass him, but yeah, I locked up for a bit. I was scared to lose the position, but yeah, I managed to keep it. So yeah.
Well, you managed to keep it, and a good effort at that. And as the race went on, we saw you making steady progress as time went on. I mean, it did look as though in the end it was going to be one of those races where you had to spend more time perhaps working with everybody rather than trying to fight your way past. And the only mistake really coming at the end of the race.
Yeah, it was the only mistake. True. Well, I tried to draft from other drivers, but there were two in front, so there was no draft for me. So yeah, I just tried to maintain the place, tried to work with others if there was possibility. There was also interesting, let's say, incidents. Maybe the guys needed to refuel just before the finish line. That gained me some positions, and yeah, that was a surprise for me a little bit.
So a bit of a surprise, but a welcome one to gain some extra places. And come the end of it all, a 7th place finish. So some good points. And of course, still 3 more rounds of racing to come. Next up, Interlagos. What can we expect from you there?
To be honest, I don't have much of practice on Interlagos, so it's gonna be interesting, especially it's gonna be hot. So don't have this much of experience with hot tires with the GTs. But yeah, we will see. I mean, I always try to get to top 10 in the class. That's my goal, at least for this season. So yeah, this is what's gonna happen probably.
All fair. And just a completely sideways question. We saw you today running a green livery for Inox Motorsport, where if your teammates were running red. Is there a particular reason, or are you just trying out a different livery?
It's the same livery in essence, but it's supported by my company at which I work at. So the logo is green, so the entire car went green. Might happen to others, to my other teammates as well, if they manage to get some backing sponsors or something like that.
All fair play. I do love the little inside lore, if you will, with regards to livery. But just as we do get ready to let you go, Mikhail, as always, I have to ask, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
Well, my teammates, good job for quali. Also you and broadcast, also organizers for this event, and yeah, that's all.
Well, Mikhail, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations today on a solid 4 points, that 7th place finish. May not have been the perfect day for many, but it was definitely a good one for yourself. We'll see you in Interlagos to see if you can carry on that trend of points. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Inox Motorsports, Miguel Leon, the pro driver in the end, talking about the fact in qualifying he really did need a huge tow. It was worth at least a second, if not more, from his teammates, and it aided him getting to 23rd. But as the racing got underway, some incidents further up the pack definitely shook things up. But what he was really mentioning there was about the fact that in the end he was a bit left to his own devices. With not too many drivers around him, and despite the fact he only made one mistake right at the end of the race, one significant mistake, the biggest mistake you could say he found himself in, whether his own volition or not, was that he had nobody to tow with, and therefore it meant that progress that others were making in the slipstream of other drivers, he then had to do things at his own pace, and these replay pictures showing that in the early stages, we had nobody to work with. But still, that's the way the field fell to him, and then he had to make the most of it, and he still managed to pull off a 7th place, but a few of his rivals having to go for splash and dashes right at the end, and it worked out out in his favour. And we look forward to seeing what he can do at Interlagos, even if he doesn't fancy his chances as highly perhaps, but you never know until you get there. Indeed, that can be said for everybody. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, off to another interview we go. We'll be back very shortly. And so it is to our third interview we go, ladies and gentlemen. And for a first time in the interview room today, we're going to be chatting to GazX Racing JRM's Jan Lintz, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Jan. What a day for yourself. Second place in the Pro class. You're making a bit of a habit of second place finishes at the moment in the Pro class. But, to be fair, some big points coming your way. A happy day then?
Absolutely. Absolutely. To repeat the second place after Mexico. No, sorry, Silverstone. Mexico was third. I didn't expect it. Car was mega. Setup was extremely good, and I was just patient and see to hold the draft as long as possible and just do no mistakes and try to get as much as possible. Yeah.
Well, definitely a very well-crafted race. And we did see in qualifying, I mean, they say you want to try and slipstream off of a teammate, but we did see the GazX Racing Team. It was almost if you guys were going for a formation photo with, I think, 6 of you queued up together. Was that always the plan, just to create one long line of cars and have you all chop and change in qualifying?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, we saw it already in Daytona, that the tracks where you really have a big benefit of the stream, you have to try it when you have teammates. Daytona didn't work for me with stream. Today was a bit better, but I think I still had 0.8 of a second in reference to my optimal lap. It's difficult. I mean, if you queue 4 or 6 cars after the other, one of them is always going to be a bit faster and other make a small mistake, so swapping positions sometimes doesn't really help, and it's a kind of lottery game. So you get a bit of stream here, nothing there, and I think my fastest lap was also with some slipstream of another car. So yeah, it's a gamble. It helps, but you have to time it right with the corresponding distance to the other, and you of course have to nail your lap and your turns to be able to profit of it. I mean,
Oh, 100%. It's always going to be a gamble, like you're saying. There's so many variables that play into it, but you got the job done very nicely in qualifying for 11th overall, third in class. Perhaps a little bit far away from some of the other drivers in your class, but of course, everything got shaken up a bit on the open lap. We did have it all go wrong for Callum Lux firstly, and then subsequently through the Dunlop chicane, a couple of drivers got caught out, and towards the end of laps 1 and 2, we also did see some incidents. So, in a way, a bit of an eventful start to the race, but you suddenly found yourself in the lead group.
yeah, I was lucky. I mean, same as Silverstone. Silverstone was also the crash with the 2 Porsches were spinning in front of me, and if you're lucky, you're on the right side and just have enough of a gap to them to be able to slow down a bit more and to change more of the line if it's necessary. And today I was also lucky. Of course, sometimes, or I think maybe I lost some speed if you have to brake in order to avoid the car in front. But yeah, I'll take the momentum. I mean, I had to leave out Road America because I was sick or ill, and yeah, Road Atlanta didn't went that well, but okay, I didn't expect to be P10 in the class, so at least I got some points, but the non-start of Road America is hurting, and so I hope to do all the remaining races, especially now I think it's Interlagos.
Yes.
So yeah, race by race, and do a good prep for the race. And I had a very good coaching yesterday with Mirko, with lines and everything. And it, yeah, of course you have to, all the ideas and inputs, you have to turn them into lap time. and it worked. I mean, I was all over the place the last days with off tracks everywhere. But okay, you test it there, and now in the race, no incident, no off track at all, and yeah, of course, the best of all, no slowdown.
Oh, indeed. Absolutely nailing it in the end. And like you say, no slowdowns so painful. Now, just before we get ready to let you go, I do have to ask one cheeky question. Obviously, all your teammates are in one livery. You're in a slightly different livery. Why is that?
Yeah, we have two liveries, and I don't know when we started.
Did they just run out of paint for the other livery and said, Jan, you've got to run the
Yeah.
other livery?
No, this livery is a bit lighter, so we scrapped the other paint. So I was hoping to get a bit faster. It looks like it helped. Now the first livery, the first one is the gold and the black golden livery. And I think 2 years ago was idea to do this art skin, and I find it, or we all find it, really really cool. Now with the new spec maps, you have a better looking gold and black livery, so it stands out more than the other one. But I decided to go from the beginning as I switched to the Corvette, or no, since Mexico then Silverstone now with the art livery, just to have to be a bit different than my colleagues, you know.
Well, fair play. Well, a little bit different. You definitely stand out, and you've stood out today with a solid result. So when we do head to Interlagos, we look forward to seeing whether you can stand out more there. But just before I let you go, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
Thank you to the league for organizing all of this. It's a very good league. I mean, we talk internal in the team. All support everything is going very cool. So keep up the good work. And also with the streaming, and of course to my teammates. I mean, it's a team game. I would be nowhere without the setup. You can have the car, but I have not the abilities to create my own setup. So shout out to all of us, and of course especially for Mirko, man. It's a huge pleasure to be in the team and to have time racing together in iRacing, and it's just another level. If you are motorsports interested, I've been that since I was child, starting with rally in South America, and then to circuits, and to know somebody who runs official and is a works driver. I mean, it's something else, and he knows what he's doing, and it helps to improve the setups, and also we work together. I mean, if I tell, okay, I have some deficits here, and we work together to get it better, and it's testing from everyone, so it's a good team effort, and cool to be here.
Oh, well, to be fair, I don't think anyone could have put it better than the way you described it, Jan. It's an absolute pleasure to have you in the interview room this evening, and thank you for such an overview of not just your race today, but also how you're working with the GazX Racing Team, and particularly with Mr. Bortolotti. We'll leave it there for now, and we'll see you at Interlagos in a week's time to see whether you can keep on moving forward. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, you too. Thank you very much for having me here.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a highly enthusiastic, and to be fair, can you blame him, the GazX Racing JRM driver there of Jan Lint, absolutely enjoying himself and really breaking it down nicely there and explaining that in qualifying, the fact that in their team running around together, you needed the tow, but the way they worked down the end did work out to advantage, and they were really looking back to Daytona in terms of what had happened. Then, when they went racing, well, it was a little bit chaotic in the first couple of laps, but he was able to move his way into the lead group, and from that point onwards, really delivering a strong race. Not really getting anything wrong, couldn't quite catch up to St. Andrew Adonis, but to be fair, making another second place and continuing that run of podiums. He's very happy with that. And the most important things, of course, all the coaching he had received from our elite winner today, Mirko Bortolotti, had paid off in terms of the lines, avoiding the off tracks, and avoiding the slowdowns. And that's why, for Jan Lintz, it has felt as though it has been an absolutely perfect day for him. And, well, I can understand why now. The fact that as he tries to close down that championship lead, he's getting closer and closer to the top of the Pro Championship, and things are tightening very nicely up there. And we'll see that next time we look at the championship stands, ladies and gentlemen, at the start of next week's broadcast. But of course, whilst we'd love to talk a little bit more about the GazX Racing drivers' day today, we do have to leave it there because we've got more interviews to come. A fourth interview is just around the corner, ladies and gentlemen, and we are heading to the Interclass. And so it's to the Interclass we come to talk with Andrew Fellows as he now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Andrew. What a day it's been for yourself. I mean, the last couple of rounds have not been great, if we're being honest, but you're getting back there. You're back into the top 5 today, and you haven't had it easy from 9th to 5th.
Yeah, the last few rounds haven't been kind. My pace has suddenly disappeared somewhere. But yeah, qualified 9th. In qualifying, I was on for a much better lap. Probably a good half a second, 3/4 of a second up, and lost it at the last chicane, unfortunately, and then didn't have enough time to set a lap. So, but yeah, from 9th to 5th, I'll certainly take that one.
Well, indeed, an absolutely phenomenal run to make those places up. But let's talk a little bit about qualifying. Of course, we've typically seen you in qualifying qualify a little bit higher, normally towards what has been 3rd through to 5th. Why 9th today?
I don't know. I think I don't normally gel very well with this track. I'm not too bad at it, but I think if you just make a little 10th here, little 10th there, it exaggerates being such a long track. So like the field spread here was quite big. If you look at the likes of like Mirko, for an example, like in the 46s, and then we're down in like the 50s, 51s, like there's 5-6 seconds difference, whereas normally you're talking, you know, maybe 1.5, 2 seconds, sometimes maybe just slightly more. And the same with Kevin. So Kevin in the Interclass was, I think he did a 48 at one point, or he did a very low 49. So again, I was in the sort of 50s, low 51s, nearly in the 50s, and I think it just a little bit here, a little bit there, and obviously if you make a 10th at the start of one of those long straights, it's 5/10 by the time you get to the other end.
Well, a bit of a change in the end, but still, qualifying is just one part of the story. It's only a lap, as they say, and in the race itself, starting that far back, it gives you a bit more visibility of the chaos that unfolded on the opening couple of laps. Where were you in all of that? Because I can imagine you're a bit of a spectator.
Yeah, I wasn't too bad to be honest. It was sort of crazy first couple of corners, and then so we come through the chicane and there's people sideways, but because I was probably that little bit further back, they'd sort of split and were clear, so the start line was clear when we come through, and James managed to get a good run on me, and took me into the chicane, which was good, and then so I then just settled down, just tried to keep on top of it and try and keep up with everyone, and it was just one of those sort of keep your head down kind of races, I think.
Oh, 100%. And from who we spoke to months ago when we spoke to Jan Lintz, he was talking about the risk of avoiding slowdowns and off tracks and coming to yourself off of that theme of keeping your head down. I mean, what was the priority around here? Is it trying to stay with the car in front to pick up the toe, as we do see the replay footage of you following Craig Tillerton and getting a distant toe? Or is it more avoid the slowdowns, because as soon as you get one of those, you are really in trouble?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I didn't get many slowdowns. I think I got a couple. But yeah, if you get a slowdown onto that first long straight onto the Maldan straight, you've had it. I know. I don't know whether it was the beginning of lap 1 or the end of lap 2. There was a couple of guys. I think James had one, Chris had one, and you just sail past them because they've obviously got to let off to clear the slowdown. Unfortunately, for James, he didn't quite clear it quick enough, and it gave him a black flag. But yeah, I think if you get a slowdown, you pretty much that's going to cost you a hell of a lot of time. So just keeping in front, just keeping within the limits, I think seems to be quite key. Slipstream, it didn't seem that strong for me today, but I don't know if that was a setup issue or what. But I know the BMW was definitely really quick on the straights, and they were definitely had a lot of top end, which made it difficult at times.
Well, the BMWs may have had the top end compared to yourself, but still you were able to make the gradual progress, and we did see you pit around just after the halfway point. I presume that was as per plan?
Yeah, that was planned. I think I could have gone a lap longer, but I think I picked up a little bit of damage when someone went off and they just grazed in front of me. So I was like, maybe I'll pit now a lap early, see if I can get rid of this damage. And I think it worked because when I come out, I was only setting probably half a second to a second faster per lap. So maybe I should have pitted earlier. But yeah, it's one of those things. And I had a great battle with Craig over several laps and Brian at the beginning as well.
Well, great battles from the start of the race all the way to the finish of the race, and in the end, a top 5. It does mean you were right in the heart of the battle for the championship lead. It is tightening at the top of the interclass. 3 rounds remaining. I mean, when we spoke to you early in the season, you were saying your focus was more towards podiums and top 5s, but now that we are getting towards the end, have you changed your focus at all?
Well, not really. I think my focus is just to try and score as many points as I can. It is very tight. Obviously, Pinter didn't win, which is obviously a good one for the championship. So I think he came 4th. So that's tightened things up a little bit. I think from my crude maths, I think me and Bruno are going to be on the same amount of points, sort of joint 3rd, with John snapping on the heels of Pinter. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. I think Kevin can still have something to play, potentially with another win. So it's going to be quite an interesting run-in for the last 3, especially next time out. Obviously, Interlagos has got extra points, being the 90-minute race. So that can spice things up even more if you have that's the one you want to win, ideally, and that'll help.
Well, a huge round next week, which everyone, yourself included, will be going for those maximal points at Interlagos. But as we get ready to leave it there, Andrew, is there anyone you'd like to leave a shout out for on the broadcast?
Shout out to yourself again, as usual, for a great broadcast, and all the admins and stewards and everyone that are behind the scenes. They do a great job, and the drivers. To be fair, the racing in the GTE league has been really, really clean. For the most part, there's been very few stewards reports, which is good to see. So it just shows the attitude of the drivers and how skilled all the drivers are out there in the GTEs. Shout out to obviously my teammates, James, Robin, John, etc. The team's championships really hotting up. I think there's 28 points potentially between the top 5, so that's going to get interesting. So yeah, just a general shout out to everyone, and good racing with Craig and Brian today.
Oh, absolutely fair. Well, with that, we'll leave you there for now, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. It always is. And, well, we'll see you at Interlagos to see whether you can push for what will be the huge haul of points that's on offer in Brazil. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Paul.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Andrew Fellows, and really putting in perspective today that he didn't quite know what it was that was holding him back over distance in his Corvette. The BMWs had the speed on the straights, other cars as well just seemed to be able to manage the gap to him in the slipstream. However, the GPX SimSport Xenon driver did identify one thing that was holding him back, and it was a bit of brusher damage early on, and if he had repaired it sooner, the pace seemed to come back into the car. I'm also talking about there as well the fact that over the distance, trying to avoid those mistakes where others did get it wrong, and he gradually made up the places. And well, everyone definitely made mistakes in the interclass today. However, Andrew Fellows, he made some of the least of them. And what, a 5th place there. It's tightening up in the championship. And Bruno Key and himself now both on very similar, if not the exact same points. anything can happen as we make our way towards the very end. And with the big score on the line at Interlagos, I think he's going to think to himself now, there's a perfect opportunity to try and turn things around. But speaking of turning things around, we've got to turn around for a bonus interview today, ladies and gents, because we missed him last time out. We're not going to miss him today. We're going to get a fifth interview in. And, well, we won't say who it is. You'll just have to wait a couple of seconds. You're about to find out who our final interview of the night is. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our final interview of the day, I'm now joined by none other than Canada's finest for Dynasty Motorsports. It is Jordan Shamblin. Good evening to you, Jordan. And, well, what a changing day it's been. However, you've overcome the change to some respect. 12th in class in qualifying, 6th for the end in the race. You came out fighting today.
Thank you. It's great to talk to you, Paul. Yeah, I was just fighting the track. It was me versus the slowdowns on the track, and I just somehow managed a P5 or P6.
Well, along the way there, of course, qualifying didn't quite work out, but you had so much pace available to you. What went wrong in qualifying?
Honestly, 100% a skill issue on my part. I just, for some reason, Lamont and me just do not get together. It's my kryptonite. I get in my head in the straightaways, think about the corner, and then mess up the corner. One day we'll get it.
Oh, indeed. One day it all clicked together, but still not a perfect combination, not a match made in heaven, as they say. But I can tell one thing about yourself is that once you get the bit between your teeth, you never give up. In the race, we saw you make some steady progress early on, and it looked as though you were going to fight for every spot, no matter who it was with.
Absolutely. I feel like it's like all the other drafting tracks, kind of like Daytona, where you just want to get in that pack, just lift and coast behind them, try to stay in that pack, because it kind of just dwindles out. But then I stumble upon a few slowdowns in the Porsche curves. I was trying to give everybody a clean and fair battle. I'm guessing we're going to talk about a certain incident.
Well, not necessarily talk about that incident, and indeed we can potentially skip over that one. But of course, one of the things here as well, talking about Le Mans, is the fact that given the speeds at which you're racing at, and also coming into some of these heavy braking zones, I can imagine an instance like the one you describe, and I think it's the one with Matthias Pettinger. When they happen, they're always going to be more dramatic, are they not? Just simply because you're coming from such aggressive speeds, 170 plus miles an hour into Indianapolis, down to what is, I think, about 60 miles an hour.
Yes, absolutely. And I noticed once the sun came down and then the Porsche burned off its fuel, the rear end wanted to swap into the whole last stint, and it was terrifying to drive.
Well, a bit of a terrifying car to drive in the end. And I mean, from a driver's perspective, then when the car starts to get scary to drive, I mean, how do you deal with it as a driver? Because, of course, there's very little rear wing on the car, a low amount of fuel as well, and you get into the end and the tyres are getting old because we're doing the entire race on a single set of tyres. I mean, what's the secret to staying alive?
Absolutely. I think it's just my signature lift and coast early into the braking zones, light braking, just to keep the car steady and stable throughout those corners where it's high load. Indianapolis, it's a big one.
Oh, I see. Well, definitely a valuable set of tricks there that enabled you to keep things nice and on the tarmac. And in the end, a 6th place. I mean, I know you've joined the season late. You've only joined us as of the second half, but the results keep on coming forward. What can we expect from yourself at Interlagos?
Absolutely. I think Interlagos is going to be a great race. I heard the track's super hot, 90 minutes, and you can't change tires and fuel at the same time in these cars. I think it's going to be a lot of different strategies. I think it plays in my hands. I'm pretty good with the fuel saving, pretty good with the tire saving. Just keep racing. Try to stay out of everybody's way. I know people are racing for the championship. I don't want to impede on those guys racing for an actual championship. Just get some laps, respect from the others. Just race. It's the RSR. It's a blast to drive. The GT is the greatest class on iRacing.
All fair play. I mean, you're taking the words out of my mouth. I'm not allowed to scream and shout too loudly about the GTs, but we all love them to bits. That's why we're here. And Jordan, just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
I got to shout out my family, you as well, SRI. Thank you for messaging me in Daytona. Very happy. I told all my friends on pit lane at Daytona at the Rolex 24. Paul just messaged me. I'm getting into the GTE league when I get back. Very excited. But just my family watches. They really enjoy it. They once the broadcast split with GTE stopped, they all were asking me, when are you going to get in the next broadcast league? When's the next broadcast? So it's nice to just put something on for them as well.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Well, a huge shout out today. If your family are tuning in right now, I hope you're all doing well, the Chamberlain family and wider. It's so great to have you tuning in and having fun. Jordan, we'll leave it there. It's been a pleasure to have you join me in the interview, and thank you for waiting. We will see you at Interlagos in a week's time to see whether you can go even higher and chase the top 5 in Pro. But until then, my friend, have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you, sir. You as well.
Well, ladies and gents, what an interview to wrap up the evening for Jordan Chamberlain there, the Dynasty Motorsports driver. In the end, talking out today, it was always going to be a bit of an uphill battle in the Porsche 911 RSR. Le Mans and him, they are like kryptonite to each other. They are not compatible. However, what is always compatible is the fact that so long as Jordan Chamberlain is there, he will go absolutely all in with regards to the racing. And a bit unfortunate, of course, he didn't really want to talk about the incident between himself and Matthias Pettinger, and understandable. What we wanted to talk about instead was the situation, the fact at such high braking speeds, when it goes wrong, it is not going to be a small incident when you're coming down from 170 plus miles an hour to about 60. But he mentioned there the fact as well, with the Porsche, once you are committed on the brakes, it can snap the car, and well, perhaps it was down to that. But he was also mentioning, as the race went on, the nature of the car became less and less steady, with a low amount of fuel load, and also the fact you're already running very little rear wing, and you've also got heavily degraded tyres. At that point, you've got to survive, and his trick, lift and coast, and just bleed the speed off early into the corners, and you can survive better. And well, I can imagine Interlagos, as he mentioned today, he's looking forward to it. 90 minutes of racing, very hot track temperatures for this time of year typically, and also the fact that you don't change tyres at the same time as putting fuel in the car. It's going to open up strategy, and he's hoping that whilst he's not in the fight for the championship, he can definitely get into the fight for some good points and places. And I want to tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to seeing Jordan Chamberlain right in the thick of it from the get-go in round number 8. But with that, that does mean that we have completed our interviews this evening. Such a stacked haul of interviews, no doubt about it. So great to hear from so many of our drivers. And let's give you a recap of who we've spoken to today. And so we had 5 interviews today, a little bit more than our normal 4. We can't do this every week, ladies and gents, and we thought we'd do a bumper edition since we had such a good day today at Le Mans. But we started off, of course, with Tim Perry from Altitude 3M Esports for his frustrating day in the office, but in the end managing what was a 4th place finish in the class. After that, we then spoke to Mikael Abasek, who did join us, and well, for Mikael, it was definitely one of those days today whereby he had to put in a lot of work in order to be able to move forward, but he found those places in the end, and he found the time out there as well, and it all clicked together for the Inox Motorsport driver. And then we came to none other than Jan Lintz in the 111 from the Pro Class for GazX Racing JRM, and his story was definitely one of a lot of happiness today. Grateful for the tuition from Mirko Bortolotti, his coach, and well, with that tuition, he was able to put 2 and 2 together and achieve a 2nd place in the Pro Class. We then came to Andrew Fellows in the Interclass there. We always love to talk from all 3 of our classes, and talking about his steady progress of GPX SimSport Xenon and the fact that things are tightening at the top of the championship. And then lastly, we did come to none other than what was Jordan Chamberlain only moments ago. And well, Jordan talking about absolutely enjoying himself out there, and so happy to be on the grid. And indeed, you could hear he's absolutely buzzing there. And well, the fact that he's been enjoying the fight, even if one didn't go quite right, but he's looking for the fight at Interlagos as well, and he's excited to be here. So huge thank you to all 5 of our drivers for their time this evening, and a huge well done to them all for their performances. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen. And so, there's been another round of the GTE Championship, and a huge thank you to you all for tuning in. If you have enjoyed the broadcast today, well, of course, we do recommend that you subscribe to the YouTube channel you've been catching this on, the SimRacing International YouTube channel, as in doing so, you'll be able to stay up to date with all of our weekly broadcasts from our series. And, well, as you can see on the screen, there's never been a better time to be a fan, a supporter, or a watcher of SimRacing International, because we have so much going on a weekly basis. On Thursday evenings, we have our GT3 Championship in its 11th season with 120 drivers over 2 splits. We also have GT3 racing on Sunday evenings in the UK Sim Racing Community GT3 Championship in its 17th rendition. And we also do have what you've been tuning into today. Of course, our first ever season of the GTE Championship. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolutely incredible round, as it always is. And then we do have, for the more casual participant, or those just looking to get in some practice, we do have our free to join practice league, which does run on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So there's never been a better time to be on the grid or tuning in at SimRacing International. And for all it and more, if you want to get to the beating heart of the community, do join the official Discord invite link at the bottom of the screen. But at this point as well, we'd like to say a big shout out and thank you to our series and league sponsors. Firstly, Kame Modern Technology. Secondly, the GP2 Group. And lastly, we need to give a mention to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that status, and long may it continue throughout the entirety of 2026. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we look ahead to next time, well, next time out, we make our way to Brazil, and on Friday, the 20th of February 2026, we see the second endurance race round. We up the time duration by 30 minutes. We up the points available by 50%, and it means that this is going to be a round which could really make or break the championship campaigns, because in the elite class, with a 5th win of the season, Mirko Bortolotti will have taken the lead, but he will have Miguel Leon hot on his heels, as he will Martin Stattmann and Tim Perry. Meanwhile, in the pro class, where it looks as though the time at the top for none other than Benjamin Massey has been extended with a third place finish today, but Angel Donas right now is definitely closing quick with another win in the books. And as for the interclass, well, he didn't quite have the fairy tale run here at Le Mans that he was expecting, but Pinto Somolovente's 4th place finish does mean he holds on to lead for now, where things tightening so, who exactly is going to be the first to go in the chase for the championship crown of the Inters? Well, for all that and more, and don't just forget about the team championship as well, it's all heating up there. You'll be able to catch the continuation of the story next week. But until then, we have been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.